Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. I'll take the gold when you're done if you find any. Luffy announced while staying with Robin. As time passed within the ruins, Luffy decided it was time to leave. I'm going to shrink these poneglyphs so we can take them with us. He approached the poneglyphs and used his ability from the Mao no Mi, which granted him the ability to alter the size of things. The poneglyphs began to shrink, diminishing to a size that could easily be carried in a pocket. With the Titan fruit and the miniaturized poneglyphs ready for transport, the crew prepared to return to the surface. They presented a small treasure of 300 million that Luffy added to the system. It wasn't much, but it already helped him a lot for someone who had almost nothing as credit in the system. With all that we got, we have more than we expected. It was worth coming here, said Luffy, satisfied with the outcome of the exploration. After their successful expedition into the depths of the ruins, the crew, carrying their newly acquired treasures, made their way back to the Black Pearl. You guys have been quite busy. Jinbai spoke tied to the deck. Luffy-sama, should we take Jinbai-sama out of the sun? He doesn't look too good there. Shirahoshi pleaded. Leave him where he is, he's a 7 warlords of the seas, he'll survive. Luffy shrugged. He turned and took the shrunken poneglyphs and the life fruit model, Titan, to the ship's vault, still wondering what he could do with the fruit, whether he gave it to Hugo now or waited to leave Alabasta. After storing everything, he announced on the deck to everyone. Time to set sail, heading to Rain Base in the north. The ship began to move slowly. Navigating through the desert was a unique feat of his ship, and the Black Pearl was more than up to the challenge. With Ecchi at the helm and the others preparing the ship, they moved forward, leaving behind them a winding trail in the sand. Chapter 139, Alabasta 08. The Black Pearl glides through the undulating sands of Alabasta amid the twilight of the night's cold wind, a chilly breath that brings with it the spicy and dry aroma of the desert. The ship of the Straw Hats swayed, leaving behind a soft trail in the sand, quickly swallowed by the ever-changing landscape. At the prow, Luffy stands out against the night sky, a solitary figure contemplating the infinite horizon. He had one of those moments he most enjoyed, contemplating the landscape, being alone. The cold wind plays with his hair and his jacket, unfazed by the temperature. He looks at the moon with his own thoughts while doing so. But then, a subtle and persistent sensation begins to infiltrate his consciousness. It's almost nothing, just a slight stirring in the air, a change in the texture of the silence. Luffy, with the intuition of a captain and a warrior, feels that someone is watching him from the shadows. At first, he ignores the sensation, attributing it to the strangeness of the desert at night. But the feeling continues, an insistent whisper on the edge of his perception. With an almost imperceptible movement, Luffy turns his head, his eyes sweeping the darkened deck. For a moment, all he sees are shadows and inanimate shapes, but then, a glimmer, a pair of eyes that capture the light of the stars. They are fixed on him, intense and silent. It's Robin, his crewmate, watching him from a dark corner. Why is she spying on me? Luffy wonders, a flicker of curiosity playing in his thoughts. Without turning around, he lets out a calm smile, directed at the void, but meant for her. A small acknowledgement of her hidden presence. Robin's gaze, surprised and perhaps a bit uncovered, fades the moment Luffy's smile touches her shadows. The captain continues to look forward right after that, the smile still playing on his lips, while the Black Pearl continues its nocturnal journey. Let it be, I'll drink. Luffy murmurs to himself, unable to understand why Robin was spying on him, pulling out a bottle of some strong drink and uncapping it with a decisive gesture. The moonlight dances on the liquid surface as he brings the bottle to his lips, savoring the warmth that spreads through his body, a welcome contrast against the sharp cold of a desert night. For 10 minutes, he loses himself in tranquility, the only sound the occasional gulp from the drink. But then, a subtle change in the air, the sound of soft footsteps approaching. Luffy, with his sharp senses, knows immediately who those light steps belong to. It's ugly to spy on others, Robin, he says, without turning around, his unmistakable smile in his voice. I wasn't spying, I just got curious and saw you at the prow. Robin responds, her voice calm and measured, but with a blush on her cheeks. She approaches, wrapped in a thick coat to protect herself from the cold that makes the nights of the Alabasta desert almost freezing. Well, I'll believe you. Are you here to join me? If you want, sit next to me and help me drink this drink. Luffy comments, still looking ahead, into the desert. Robin doesn't respond immediately but walks up to him, climbing onto the prow and kneeling next to Luffy. Here, it helps to warm up. Luffy offers, extending the bottle to her. Robin hesitates for a moment, a brief pause but loaded with meaning. Luffy, noticing the hesitation, teases her with a mischievous smile. You wouldn't be disgusted by your captain's mouth, would you? He teases, the moonlight reflecting in his bright eyes. Of course not. Robin finally responds, taking the bottle with one hand while the other holds her coat. She takes a sip, feeling the warmth of the drink mix with the cold of the night. Who would have thought the famous Nico Robin would drink in this way? Luffy comments, teasing her once more. Robin blushes slightly at the comment, a subtle but noticeable reaction, especially to Luffy. The two companions began to share a moment of calm and comfort in the vast and unpredictable desert of Alabasta. Don't talk like that, I'm just trying to warm up. Robin lightly rebuts Luffy's previous statement, a shadow of a smile in her voice as she nestles closer, seeking the shared warmth. Luffy doesn't respond for a moment, and the small comfortable silence between them is broken by a more pressing matter. Do you already know how you're going to deal with Crocodile? Robin asks, her curiosity surfacing. Luffy nods, a serious expression crossing his moonlit face. Yes, beside Yamato and now even me using Haki, it's much easier to defeat him than you might think. He starts, pausing to take the bottle from Robin's hands and take another sip. Did you know you can defeat Crocodile using water? Luffy smiles at Robin with this. Water? She murmurs, surprised and intrigued. Yes, his logia is sand, he has the power to dry everything out, but his weakness is moisture. Luffy explains, passing the bottle back to her. Any surface with water counters his intangibility, and he becomes vulnerable. That's why it's easy to deal with him. Robin contemplates the information, the warmth of the drink in her hands mixing with her thoughts. She looks at Luffy, seeing not just the cheerful and carefree pirate but also the cunning and aware captain, always thinking ahead, even in moments of calm. I understand. She says, trusting her captain. Robin diverts her gaze to the sky, her eyes reflecting the twinkling stars above. There's a moment of silence as she gets lost in distant thoughts. You know, Luffy. She begins, her voice softer and more reflective. When Ohara was destroyed, I used to look up at the sky every night. There's a pause, and when she continues, there's a touch of melancholy in her words. I wondered when, or even if, I would start to realize my dream. Robin pauses, looking up at the infinity above them, as if the stars could reveal secrets of the past. It's been almost 2 decades of loneliness and searching. She murmurs. 2 decades questioning if I would ever find the answers I so desperately sought. Then, she turns to Luffy, a glow of gratitude and admiration in her eyes. But then I met you and the others. And in such a short time, I've seen 4 poneglyphs in such a short time that I still wonder if I'm somehow dreaming, all my years of search without result. Her expression softens, and a shy smile appears on her lips. You appeared and captured me, but made me believe that maybe, just maybe, my dream isn't so impossible after all. At this moment, Robin is not just the mysterious archaeologist or the former fugitive agent, she's a dreamer, someone who has found a glimpse of hope and companionship under a sky full of promises. Luffy, hearing Robin's words, feels a wave of understanding and camaraderie. He looks at her with a warm and genuine smile, his eyes shining with a mix of determination and empathy. He recognizes her strength and vulnerability, the weight of the years of loneliness and searching she carries. When a gust of cold wind sweeps across the deck, Robin involuntarily shivers, the penetrating cold of the desert night cutting through her coat. Luffy, noticing her shiver, acts instinctively. Without a word, he wraps her in a gentle but firm embrace. The power of the flames he possesses is not just a battle tool but also a source of warmth and comfort. As Luffy embraces her, Robin feels her body warming in a way more than Luffy's heat should. Robin feels that his warmth goes beyond the physical, it's a warmth that speaks of protection, care, and a silent promise of support. Robin, initially surprised, gradually relaxes in the embrace. She feels a sense of security, a momentary relief from the constant worries and fears that have accompanied her over the years, all in the embrace of this man. As Robin nestles into the warmth of Luffy's embrace, a new tension begins to form, subtle but undeniably present. The physical proximity, combined with the vulnerability of the shared moment. The surrounding desert, vast and silent, seems to be the only witness to this man and woman sharing a moment together. Robin, slightly affected by the drink they shared, begins to see Luffy in a different light. The drink warms her body and softens her inhibitions, allowing long-suppressed feelings to surface. She looks at him, his face illuminated by the moon, and sees not just the fearless captain or the reliable friend but also someone for whom she has started to nurture a deep and perhaps even passionate affection. Their eyes meet, and for a moment, everything else disappears. There is only Luffy, with his easy smile and comforting presence, and Robin, with the complexity of her emotions reflected in her gaze. Her heart beats a little faster, a mix of nervousness, anticipation, and something warmer, more urgent. Luffy, in turn, senses the change in dynamics. He notices Robin's gaze, more intense and revealing than usual. There's a tacit understanding, a growing awareness of the moment between them. He holds her a little closer, an acknowledgement of the emotional proximity that is forming. The space between them diminishes, almost as if it were an inevitability. Robin, moved by a mix of feelings amplified by the drink and the warmth of the moment, leans forward. Luffy, responding to the intense look and her subtle movement, also leans in. There's a pause, a last moment of silence and anticipation, before their lips finally meet. The kiss was a gentle but powerful shock, a meeting of warmth. Robin feels her body heating up, not just from the power of Luffy's flames but from the internal warmth that arises from a deep place within her, a response to Luffy's closeness and affection. For Luffy, he feels Robin's warmth against him, not just physical but emotional, and responds with a care that perhaps even he didn't know he possessed. As they part, there's a new understanding between them, a silent bridge formed for the two. They are together in the vastness of the desert, but now, that vast emptiness doesn't seem so cold or lonely. After the kiss, Robin and Luffy remain close, sharing soft and hesitant smiles. There's a comfortable silence between them, an acknowledgement of the depth of what just happened. Luffy, always the more impulsive, moves in to kiss Robin's lips again, which she is quite receptive to, allowing him to envelop her with his tongue and tries to respond in kind. They remain like this for several minutes, sitting side by side, sharing deep kisses with each other. They engage in a kiss while Luffy starts to run his hand down Robin's body, passing through her parts. The woman didn't seem against the touch of his hands, so Luffy spared no effort and palmed her waist and squeezed her large breasts while he kissed her, removing his tongue from Robin's mouth as a line of saliva continued to connect the two and Robin quite blushing. Luffy dives into his neck while he still held her body in his soft hands. Ah! She moaned at Luffy's Ecchi, feeling her body heat up like never before. Luffy smiled at the woman entering a state of pleasure, while her hand slid down both of her legs reaching between her legs with a gentle touch. Ah! Luffy! Robin feeling her pussy being touched by warm fingers, even above her clothes she moaned loudly. Luffy's touch made her feel something she had never felt before. Do you want to stay here or go inside? Luffy asks, giving her a few more kisses. Let's do it here, but I've never done it before, even though I recognize that I'm too old for these things, she said with a longing look. Luffy didn't respond. His hand slipped her legs, entering her clothes and feeling her pussy personally, while he caressed her to make her wet before any penetration. Robin moaned with that touch personally on her intimate parts now. Insert it. Please. She practically begged after Luffy ran his warm fingers over the entrance. Luffy put his fingers inside her pussy, making her squirm a little in pleasure. Ah, Luffy, she said with a tone that no longer sounded like the expressionless Robin. Luffy started to play with her pussy, while taking off her bra. Even in the freezing night, Robin was being warmed by her captain. What beautiful breasts! Luffy couldn't help but think, seeing her huge breasts while her finger still played with and left Robin's pussy. I feel weird, she moaned before coming for the first time from his touch. Was that good, Robin? Luffy asked, kissing her. Yes. Luffy, I know this is sudden and too soon, but I love you, she said, hugging him with great embarrassment. That's good, Robin, because you've always been the woman I most wanted to meet in this world, Luffy said with a small smile as the woman pressed her breasts against him in a hug. She was a little surprised by this. Yes, Luffy said. He always classified Robin as the woman he wanted most in his bed, even though she wasn't the prettiest. She had a unique charm for the captain of the Straw Hat Pirates. Just don't tell other girls about this. Luffy spoke again with a small smile. It's okay, she said and kissed him softly. Can I please you? She asks a little shyly, and Luffy nods. She, still with her breasts out, went to Luffy's pets and started to remove his belt. After pulling out his cock, which was already hard, Robin approached to start licking it before putting it in her mouth. And start to really suck. She's not that good at blowjobs, but it's her first time, so you can appreciate it. Luffy liked that woman with vibrant blue eyes sucking his cock with the care of someone who's never done this before. She continued sucking and even asked him if he was enjoying it. Luffy just nodded and told her to continue, as the sight of her cock being sucked by Nico Robin was quite pleasant. A while later he came in her mouth. That was very good. Luffy said, satisfied. It tastes better than I imagined. She murmured. Do you want to continue? Luffy asked, and she nodded. Yes. She replied shyly. She already told herself that she would give herself to this man many days ago, so it was inevitable. Stand in front of me. Luffy asked, and Robin did just that. Luffy lifted her coat and dress, while putting her panties to the side. They were in a mommy and daddy position. Luffy carefully penetrated, increasing Robin's healing by several times to make herself pleasurable for her. After moaning a few times in pain, she felt pleasure, and Luffy would begin what would be a night of hours of sex between the two on that bow of the ship in the middle of the desert while they are alone. I mean, almost alone, because a certain fish man was tied up on the deck because they forgot to put him in prison again. He couldn't see what was going on, but he could still hear the woman's moans, which he found very unpleasant while he had to hear this in the next few hours. Chapter 140, Alabasta 09. The scenery shifts dramatically from the cold, starry desert to the opulent and illuminated interior of Crocodile's casino in Rain Base. The atmosphere is charged with the buzz of voices, the clinking of glasses, and the soft background music that floats in the air filled with expectation and intrigue. The casino, a labyrinth of luxury and decadence, shines with golden and silver lights, reflecting on polished surfaces and the eager faces of gamblers. People from all corners of Alabasta and even from outside the country are gathered there, gambling in hopes of riches, even though most often they leave poorer than they entered. Some complain and demand compensation, but when the owner of the place appears, any confusion ends instantly. After all, who would like to provoke 7 warlords of the seas? At the heart of Rain Base's labyrinth of luxury and intrigue, far from the gaming tables and glittering machines, there is a room that few know and even fewer are permitted to enter. This is where Crocodile, the supreme lord of this realm of sand and secrets, plans his most decisive moves. The room is a sanctuary of power, each detail carefully chosen to reflect the magnitude and control of its occupant. Dark wooden walls are adorned with detailed maps and expensive artworks, while a large mahogany table dominates the center. Seated behind this table is Crocodile, an imposing figure even at rest. His long coat, a symbol of his authority and style, is casually draped over a nearby chair. The cigar between his fingers emits smoke that curls in the air like the plans in his mind, while a glass of fine liquor rests within his reach, a toast to his own cunning. His gaze is fixed and penetrating, that of a predator awaiting its next prey. At this moment of growing tension, the door opens. Mr. 1, an imposing presence in his own right, enters with the posture of someone well aware of the weight of their responsibilities. Sir Crocodile, Vice Admiral has arrived. He informs with a voice that resonates respect and urgency. Let him in. Responds Crocodile, his words short and direct. Without another word, Mr. 1 nods and withdraws, his heavy footsteps echoing against the wooden floor. Moments later, the figure of Vice Admiral Momonga fills the entrance. He is the antithesis of the environment he now finds himself in, where the casino exudes excess and indulgence. Momonga radiates discipline and order. His uniform is impeccable, each insignia and medal a story of duty and battle. His posture is rigid, a pillar of unwavering authority and power. The contrast between the two men is striking. One, a criminal with ambitions that stretch across seas and deserts; the other, a servant of the world government, committed to justice and order. And yet, here they are, in the same space, united by a common purpose that transcends their differences. Vice Admiral Momonga, an imposing and austere figure, enters Crocodile's private room with the seriousness of someone fully aware of the power games he is about to engage in. A representative of the Navy and the world government, his mission goes beyond the immaculate uniform he wears. He is the bearer of a delicate balance between justice and diplomacy. His eyes, trained to discern truth among shadows, assess Crocodile not just as a criminal but as a key piece on a much larger chessboard. Despite his position and the orders he must follow, Momonga carries with him an unwavering sense of justice, a flame that even the dark corridors of power cannot extinguish. On the other side, Crocodile receives him not as a hostile but with the venomous courtesy of a predator who recognizes another predator. His smile, though superficially welcoming, does not reach his cold and calculating eyes. Vice Admiral. He greets with a voice that mixes cordiality with a touch of disdain. What a pleasure to receive you in my modest establishment. I hope you find the accommodations to your liking. Momonga, maintaining the posture and composure his rank demands, responds without mincing words. Crocodile, we are here to discuss a criminal entering Alabasta and how his capture aligns with the interests of the world government and the Navy. His voice is firm, each word reflecting his commitment to his mission. Crocodile, leaning back in his chair with an expression of interest, resumes the conversation. And that would be Straw Hat, Monkey D. Luffy, with a bounty of 200 million. Quite the figure for being the son of Monkey D. Dragon and the grandson of Monkey D. Garp. His mention of Luffy's familial ties is no casual remark, it's a reminder of the dangers and complications that the young pirate represents. Yes, I'm here on an official mission to capture him. Momonga confirms, his voice slightly more tense as he acknowledges the magnitude of his task. Crocodile, with the cigar still between his fingers, releases a cloud of smoke into the air, his expression a mix of amusement and calculation. A vice admiral to capture Ecchi? That seems quite interesting. His voice is tinged with a sarcastic tone, highlighting how absurd he considers the situation. However, he understands that such mobilization is not just a precautionary measure, it's indicative that Mugiwara represents much more than a mere Ecchi pirate. The political gears behind this decision are turning at full force, and Crocodile, as cunning as ever, is trying to read every move. Momonga, noticing the slight disdain in Crocodile's voice, remains unperturbed. It appears Monkey D. Dragon is involved in a serious crime, and they need his son for punishment. His voice is firm, but there is a slight trace of frustration. The information restricted to his rank leaves him in a delicate position. He's an enforcer of the world government's orders, but also a strategist who needs to understand the full picture to act efficiently. The sigh he lets out is not just from fatigue but from a slight discontent with the obscurity surrounding him. There are also reports indicating that someone in his crew can use hockey. So, they pose a threat, even to you. He continues, fixing a penetrating gaze on Crocodile. The mention of hockey and its implication are not taken lightly. It's a power that can change the course of a battle, a skill that Crocodile, despite his confidence, cannot ignore. Crocodile, upon hearing this, lets out a low growl, a sound that speaks more than any words could. The insinuation that he might be in danger, or worse, that he might underestimate Mugiwara and his crew, strikes a nerve. He is not a man who tolerates being underestimated or threatened, neither by the world government nor by its agents. Crocodile with a disdainful look. Ah, yes, the famous hockey. But you need not worry about that, Vice Admiral. The source of your fear, Yamato, is currently in Alabasta's capital. They've split up, which makes this the perfect time to strike the captain. Vice Admiral Momonga, with his unshakable posture and penetrating gaze, considers Crocodile's words. Divided, you say? That certainly plays into our favor. Without the hockey user to protect them, the rest of the crew will be easier to handle. His voice is firm, each word weighed and measured, revealing a man who is as much a strategist as an enforcer. Crocodile, leaning over the map with an expression of cold satisfaction, nods. My suggestion is that we set up an ambush here, in Rain Base. Mugiwara and his gang will be coming here. My informants have passed on that he was in one of the towns to the south, so it should take a week for him to get here. He traces an imaginary line with his finger, outlining the path he expects Luffy to take. With you and I working together, we can ensure there will be no escape for them. Momonga, recognizing the logic behind the plan and the advantages of its execution, responds with a cold resolve. Understood. I will coordinate with my forces to ensure everything is ready. We'll capture Monkey D. Luffy and whoever else is with him. There's a gravity in his voice, a weight that speaks of past battles and the price of justice. However, Crocodile, whose plans are always layered and complex, adds a surprise element to the conversation. Excellent. There's one person among the gang that I want to deal with personally. His tone is ominous, and there's a glint of something personal in his eyes. He already knows of the supposed betrayal of Robin, having been informed of her association with the Straw Hats in a southern town. For him, this is not just a mission or a strategic alliance, it's also an opportunity to settle personal scores. My priority is to capture the captain of the group. Momonga responds dryly, his voice revealing no emotion beyond a cold determination. He is a man of duty, his mission clear and unshakable, even in the face of Crocodile's cunning plans. Crocodile, in turn, is eager to conclude the matter. His strike on Alabasta is ready to be executed, and the presence of the Vice Admiral and the threat the Straw Hats pose are the last barriers in his way. He needs to get rid of Mugiwara and his crew as quickly as possible so that Momonga leaves the country, and he can proceed with his plans without further interference. As they discuss, the distinctive and urgent sound of a dendenmushi cuts through their conversation, and Momonga's expression shifts to one of mild irritation. Being interrupted at this critical moment is more than an annoyance, it's a sign that something significant is happening. He turns and answers the call with the authority of someone accustomed to being in command. Vice Admiral Momonga here. Report. The response he receives is as surprising as it is urgent. The voice on the other end is clearly astounded, almost incredulous. Sir, we have an unexpected situation. The Straw Hats ship. It's approaching Rain Base now. They're sailing through the sand, sir. Sailing through the sand? Momonga repeats, his forehead furrowing in confusion and concern. He casts a glance at Crocodile, whose expression of interest and calculation suggests that he is also surprised, but perhaps less disturbed than the Vice Admiral. Yes, sir. It's as if the desert were the sea for them. We don't know how they're doing it, but they're advancing rapidly toward the city with their flag unfurled. The subordinate explains, his voice still laden with shock. Crocodile, listening to the conversation, lets out a low chuckle. Amazing. The rookie ship can do that. But this means they'll arrive much sooner than expected. We need to speed up our preparations. As soon as the Den Mushi call ends, Vice Admiral Momonga and Crocodile spring into action, the unexpected news of the imminent arrival of the Straw Hats accelerating their plans. Both start issuing orders to their subordinates, preparing for the quickly approaching confrontation. Momonga turns to his own Den Mushi and dials quickly. To all marine units in the city. He begins, his voice carrying the unwavering authority of a veteran leader. The target is approaching faster than anticipated. I want blockades established at all city entrances. Mobilize immediately and prepare for combat. Remember, Straw Hat is not an ordinary pirate, and we need to be ready for any eventuality. Inform the Baroque orcs that the plan is being moved up. Crocodile orders with a voice that brooks no contestation. I want all agents at their posts and ready to strike the moment Mugiwara and his gang set foot in Rain Base. They won't have the slightest idea what hit them. His instruction is clear and deadly, the word of a leader who expects nothing less than absolute obedience. The subordinate, recognizing the gravity of the situation, nods quickly and departs to execute the orders without hesitation. The efficiency and speed with which they move reflect the training and discipline that are hallmarks of Crocodile's agents. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, the Marines under Momonga's command also mobilize. There's a buzz of activity as orders are transmitted, Marines rushing to their positions, weapons being prepared, and strategies being revised. The Vice Admiral, despite being surprised by the unexpected development, maintains a calm and authoritative demeanor, guiding his forces with the skill of an experienced leader. Rain Base, a city usually vibrant and full of life, begins to transform under the weight of the impending confrontation. The streets, once filled with tourists and residents enjoying the delights of the casino and shops, now resonate with the sound of military preparations and strategic movements. Barricades are erected at strategic points, snipers position themselves on rooftops, and secret agents mingle among the population, their vigilant eyes watching every move. The Black Pearl advances with determination through the desert sands. On board, the crew of the Straw Hats prepares for the imminent confrontation. Luffy, with a glint of defiance in his eyes, looks toward Rain Base, his indomitable spirit unshaken by the danger that awaits them. Chapter 141, Alabasta 10. The Black Pearl glides across the vast desert sands, its sails billowing with the wind as the silhouette of Rain Base City becomes increasingly defined against the evening horizon. Vivi, the princess of Alabasta, stands beside Luffy, looking toward the approaching city. Her voice trembles slightly as she expresses her concerns. Luffy, do you think Crocodile will fall and Alabasta will be safe? She maintains an anxious gaze while looking at her captain. Crocodile has already made a big mess in Alabasta. Even if we finish him here, we still have to deal with the rebels who are preparing to overthrow the monarchy. Luffy spoke in a serious tone. Vivi shrinks, but Luffy offers words of encouragement. Don't worry about that. Yamato and Nami will protect the capital. We just have to prevent an unnecessary massacre on both sides. Luffy turns to Vivi and smiles to reassure her. Inspired by Luffy's confidence, Vivi lifts her head, her own determination reigniting. You're right, we will manage to protect Alabasta. Luffy then turns to the rest of the crew, his gaze sweeping over the faces of his companions. Everyone, let's prepare for battle, we're approaching the city, and I'm sure Crocodile knows it. The order is given, and each crew member responds with a firm nod. They are ready, their weapons prepared, their minds focused. Luffy, with his straw hat firmly on his head, remains at the prow, his eyes never leaving the approaching city. They are arriving, ready to face Crocodile and anyone else who dares to threaten their new territory. As the Black Pearl advances toward Rain Base, Luffy stands at the prow with a burning determination in his eyes. Let's take down a second 7 warlords of the seas. He announces, his voice full of confidence and vigor. In a corner of the deck, Jinbe, still tied up, can't help but grimace at Luffy's bold proclamation. As the ship got quite close to the city, Luffy noticed something strange. Instead of the hustle and bustle typical of a busy city, he sees a surprising number of Marines positioned in battle formation. What are they doing here? He murmurs, more to himself than anyone else. The presence of the Navy is an enigma, Smoker should still be in the south, and his rapid arrival at Rain Base seems almost impossible. The crew joins Luffy at the prow, observing the unusual scene with binoculars and expressions of surprise. Chopper, always the most anxious, can't contain his fear. Are we going to face the Marines too? He cries out, his voice trembling. Zoro, wielding his swords with a cool calm, responds with unwavering confidence. Of course, no matter who the enemy is, if they decide to stand in our way, we'll deal with them. His tone suggests there is no enemy too big for the Straw Hats to face. Chopper, still nervous, rocks back and forth. That's scary, he exclaims, unable to hide his anxiety. Lami, with her arms crossed and a serious expression, adds her own observation. It seems we'll have more company than expected. Raju looks at Lami and mocks, I hope you're not afraid of a few Marines, right? Lami responds with her own mockery. If you think I'm scared of the Navy, you don't know me. The entire crew awaits as the ship approaches. Hugo, with a firm and confident look, breaks the silence. Well, no matter who's there, we'll go over them, woof. Woof. Chouchou agrees. It's nothing, we have 7 warlords of the seas to take down and a country to conquer. And no one is going to stop us, not even the Navy. Luffy encouraged everyone. Vivi, beside Luffy, can't hide a grimace at the fact that Luffy says he's going to conquer Alabasta. As they were already above the city, the silence is abruptly broken by the sound of rifles being loaded. A line of Marines, a formidable force, emerges in front of the city, their guns pointed directly at the Black Pearl. This is quite a disappointing reception. Where are the cannons? Comments Kuina, drawing her sword. The Marines signal to each other, and a volley of shots is fired toward the ship. But Lami, quick and skilled, acts immediately. With her ability to control space, she creates a room around the ship. The bullets stop in the air as they enter her domain, suspended and harmless. Luffy, assuming command with the natural ease of a born leader, distributes the orders. Bippo, Nojiko, Alvida, Kuina, Hucky, take care of the Marines. Hugo, Robin, Usopp, Bragi, and Dory, handle the Baroque Works agents. Zoro, Raju, Lami, you'll come with me to fight Crocodile and his main forces, Shirahoshi, Megalo, Vivi, Crew, Laboon, Chopper, and Chouchou will stay on the ship to protect it. Understood? His voice is clear and commands immediate respect and action. Yes, Captain. The response comes as a unified chorus. As the ship approaches 40 meters from the Marines, Luffy, Zoro, Raju, and Lami leap into the air, using moonwalk to launch themselves into battle. The Marines look up, surprised by their ability to move through the air. They're using the Navy's style. One exclaims, pointing to the sky. While all eyes are turned upward, a voice alerts among the Marines, stop looking at the sky, look at the ship. And then, huge shadows emerge from the side of the Black Pearl. Bragi and Dory, the giants, have returned to their colossal size after Luffy cancelled their reduced transformation. The Marines, caught off guard, can only scream in shock. Giants. Where did they come from? Before the Marines can regroup, a group of Straw Hats charges towards the 40 Marines at the city's entrance. A storm of attacks envelops them, tempest kicks slicing the air, booming explosions, sharp sword strikes, and powerful mace impacts. The Marines, outmatched in skill and strength, fall one after another, easily defeated. The Marines have been taken down. We need to act. A Baroque Works agent observes the scene with growing alarm. Around him, fear spreads among his peers. Can we fight them? They easily took down 40 Marines. And then, the ground trembles beneath their feet. Crack. The agents look stunned in another direction, only to see the 2 giants approaching with steps that make the earth shake. We've found our enemies, Bragi. Dory celebrates, his voice booming like thunder. Bragi, with a contemplative look in his huge eyes, comments, will they be a challenge, Dory? They look at the agents as if they were mere ants, a smile spreading on the giants' faces, awaiting a challenging fight, while the men looked frozen at the giants. Chaos ensues in the city, and the Baroque Works agents find themselves facing a colossal dilemma. What are we going to do? Can we fight these giants? One of them exclaims, his voice trembling with fear in the face of the imposing presence of Bragi and Dory. I've never seen a giant before. Let's run away. Another suggests, already backing away, his survival instinct speaking louder. However, while they are distracted with the giants, a new threat emerges. You shouldn't pay so much attention to the giants. A voice echoes, and suddenly, Hugo appears among them. With quick and precise movements, he begins punching the agents, knocking one after another with surprising efficiency. Meanwhile, the Straw Hats begin to spread throughout the city, facing both agents and Marines. Crocodile and the Navy's plan was to corner them, but they underestimated the crew's strength and skill. Each member of the Straw Hats is more than capable of defending themselves, and the city quickly fills with the sound of booming and buildings cracking and breaking. Inside one of the houses, a frightened resident asks, "Hey, what's going on out there?" His wife, equally worried, responds, "I don't know, just the Marines asked us to stay inside because dangerous criminals were coming." But before they can process the situation, the wall of their house cracks and a man appears flying, breaking the furniture. Outside, Dory reprimands Broggy with a worried tone. "Hey, Broggy, what did Princess Vivi say about not destroying the city?" Broggy, realizing his mistake, responds, "It's true, Dory, I went overboard, I hope she won't be angry." His voice carries a tone of genuine concern. Dory, aware of the impact of their actions, appears in the opening he created, his gigantic head filling the view of the residents. "Sorry about that, little ones, we'll be more careful," he says, trying to alleviate the situation. But the shock is too much for the couple. Seeing a giant apologizing through the destroyed wall of their house, they simply faint, falling to the ground the next moment. In the heart of the city, in front of the casino, while the battle unfolds in the streets, Crocodile and Vice Admiral Momonga are on an elevated spot, observing the city below. They start to hear the chaos spreading, the sound of fights and destruction reaching them from all directions. The confusion is palpable, and a sense of something having gone terribly wrong is apparent. What's going on? Has the plan gone wrong? Momonga questions, his face a mask of concern and surprise. Crocodile, with his sharp eyes, looks intently towards the various locations where the sounds of fighting are loudest. The composure he exhibited before is now replaced by a glimpse of uncertainty. At that moment, a Navy Commodore, using the moonwalk technique to quickly reach them, appears. Vice Admiral Momonga. He calls out, his expression tense and urgent. "Tell me the situation," Momonga demands, his voice carrying the weight of authority and the demand for clear answers. "The plan has gone wrong. All our forces are falling to the strength of the pirates. The entire crew is very powerful and they're all using the 6 styles." The officer reports, the urgency clear in his voice. 6 styles? How is that possible? They're taking down everyone? Where's their captain? Momonga asks, trying to assess the severity of the situation and the next course of action. "I'm right here." A voice sounds from the sky, and everyone looks up. Luffy appears, accompanied by Lamy, Rachel, and Zoro, using moonwalk to land in front of them. His arrival is as sudden as it is impressive. "Monkey D. Luffy." Momonga speaks cautiously, his experience telling him that the young pirate before him is a far greater threat than he initially imagined. His haki is on alert, sensing the intensity of Luffy's power. "Mugiwara." Crocodile comments, his voice still laden with arrogance, not imagining how Luffy is a threat to him, but he couldn't know that. "Look who's here, the famous Vice Admiral Momonga and the 7 warlords of the seas. It's not every day we come across something as peculiar as you two together." Luffy smiles excitedly, perceiving the opportunity for a challenge here. The prospect of fighting such opponents seems only to elevate his spirit. Before Luffy and his team are Crocodile, Vice Admiral Momonga, Mr. 1, Miss Doublefinger, and 4 Navy Commodores. The tension between the two sides is almost tangible, a thin line between negotiation and total confrontation. While the rest of the city is engaged in battle, the true confrontation, the heart of the storm that is Rain Base, is about to begin. "You, Garp's grandson, will be captured today." Momonga speaks with a sharp voice, and Luffy just smiles at that. "Interesting, I hope you'll be great opponents." Luffy smiles excitedly at this, while enemies look at him with raised eyebrows, as the rookie was quite excited, even in front of a Navy Vice Admiral and 7 warlords of the seas. Chapter 142, Alabasta 11. Amidst the growing tension and chaos around, Zoro decided to break the silence behind Luffy. With a determined look and his swords ready, he turns to Luffy. "Hey, Luffy, leave one for me," he comments with a gleam in his eyes. Luffy looks at Zoro, a bit surprised. Rachel, exhaling a puff of smoke from her cigarette after lighting it, adds her own complaint. "Yeah, Captain, leave someone strong for us. You always fight the strongest ones." Her voice is calm. Lamy doesn't miss the chance to tease. "TSK. Whatever, as long as my opponent is stronger than that twisted eyebrow over there." Her taunt is direct and sharp, aiming at Rachel. Rachel, annoyed by the comment, growls in response. "What did you say, goth girl?" She glares at Lamy, ready to retort. Luffy, amidst the discussion of his crew, sighs. His responsibilities as captain include not only facing enemies but also maintaining order among his somewhat eccentric companions. On the other side, Crocodile, Momonga, and their allies watch the scene with looks of disdain and surprise. They did not expect their opponents to be so carefree in the face of their fight. Luffy, deciding it's time to turn his attention to the threat ahead, faces his opponents with a confident smile. "So, you guys are the big bosses, huh? Doesn't seem like your men are doing too well out there. Monkey D. Luffy, your reputation precedes you. It seems we underestimated you and your crew. But don't think that means you'll win today. His voice is firm and charged with the determination of a man who defends justice at all costs. Next to him, Crocodile exudes a threatening calm. Lighting a cigar, he looks at Luffy confidently. Mugiwara, you're more annoying than I've heard. But ending you here will spare me future troubles. His tone is disdainful, but his eyes reveal a newly born caution. He knows that Luffy and his crew are not ordinary opponents after all that has happened. Zoro, impatient with the talk, adjusts the grip on his swords, a gleam of anticipation in his eyes. So, can I take one of them? He asks, almost as if he were choosing an opponent in a game, his readiness for combat clear and evident. Raju, always the image of lethal calm, stands beside Luffy, her eyes scanning the battlefield. Don't underestimate the power of the Straw Hats. Lami, defiant and confident, stares at the Navy Commodores. Do you really think you can stop us? She calmly asks with her sword on her shoulder. Around them, the sounds of intense fighting continue to echo through the city. Distant explosions, screams, and the clangor of steel against steel paint a picture of chaos and destruction. The residents of Rain Base, hidden in their homes, are apprehensive, waiting and praying for the conflict to end without further bloodshed. At the epicenter of the imminent confrontation, Vice Admiral Momonga takes the initiative, his stern expression reflecting the seriousness of the situation. With a deliberate and authoritative movement, he unsheaths his sword, the blade gleaming with promises of past battles and victories won. Actions will speak now. He announces, his voice a firm echo of resolution. The Commodores at his side, feeling the urgency in the air, adjust their postures, ready to enter the fight. Crocodile, no less imposing, responds to the challenge. The sands around him begin to move as if possessed, enveloping him in a mantle of power and danger. Prepare for the true terror of the desert. He says, his voice a threatening whisper that promises pain and destruction. The sand churns violently, ready to obey every command of its master. In this atmosphere of growing hostility, the two leaders prepare for the clash, each with their own form of lethal threat. Luffy and his companions, facing such formidable opponents, remain unshakable. Luffy advances fearlessly, his determination reflecting the confidence of someone who has faced countless challenges and emerged victorious. Leave the two to me, he declares, his voice resounding with firmness. Beside him, Zoro frowns, clearly dissatisfied for not being able to face the most formidable opponents, but he recognizes the strength and resolution of his captain. Adjusting his iconic straw hat, Luffy faces Momonga and Crocodile with a defiant smile. Alright then, let's see who's going to be buried. Beside him, Zoro, Raju, and Lami prepare to face the other enemies, each with a determined look and ready to enter the battle. The first move is made in an instant. Momonga advances with his sword raised, ready to deliver a decisive strike. His expression is one of total concentration, the focus of a man who has lived his life for the justice of the Navy. Simultaneously, Crocodile transforms into a sandstorm, his body blending with the grains in a threatening whirlwind. He moves with the intent to engulf Luffy, his form becoming almost indistinct in the midst of the sandstorm, a manifestation of his fierce power and the threat he poses to anyone who dares to challenge him. Luffy, without a hint of hesitation, prepares to face both simultaneously. He lunges forward, ready to confront Momonga's sword and Crocodile's sandstorm with his own set of extraordinary abilities. As the tension between Luffy and his formidable opponents reaches a critical point, the captain of the Straw Hats reveals a surprise. He unsheaths one of the swords that Zoro acquired and lent to him, the Benaheim. The blade glows with a promise of power as Luffy holds it firmly, preparing for the imminent confrontation. Though not a traditional swordsman, his determination and combat skills are undeniable. The clash begins with an explosion of energy. Momonga's sword and Luffy's Benaheim collide, sending sparks and a shockwave through the air. The Vice Admiral is clearly more skilled in the art of the sword, his technique refined and precise. However, Luffy compensates with his surprising strength provided by his fruits. The clash of the two is a spectacle of strength and skill. After the initial impact, Crocodile takes the opportunity to attack. He flies toward Luffy, his claw ready to strike the pirate. But Luffy, always quick and cunning, reacts instantly. Using his more fruit model, Amplify Human Devil Fruit ability, he performs a quick and powerful cut, severing Crocodile's head from his body. A blast of sand fills the area, and Luffy retreats, prepared for his adversary's next move. Your strength is surprising, Momonga comments, his expression revealing a mix of respect and caution as he analyzes the sword in Luffy's hands. Meanwhile, Crocodile, far from being defeated, begins to regenerate. The sand stirs and gathers, reforming the head that had been cut off moments before. Crocodile re-emerges, growling, fury and shock evident in his eyes. He underestimated Luffy, and that realization only serves to increase his anger and determination. As Crocodile and Momonga prepare to continue the battle, Luffy, determined and focused, decides which ability of the more fruit model, amplify human devil fruit, he will utilize. He knows he can only use one application at a time and that his limit is to multiply a characteristic by up to 40 times. More fruit model, amplify human devil fruit, strength, apply 40 times. Luffy chooses to increase his strength to the maximum. As soon as he makes his choice, the confirmation thought resonates in his mind. His body adjusts, and he feels a surge of power coursing through his muscles, ready to unleash devastating force. With this increased strength, Luffy advances. Momonga, with his sword in hand, attacks first, but Luffy, now with his amplified strength, easily blocks the blow and counterattacks, pushing the Vice Admiral back with the impact. Momonga is surprised by the sudden and overwhelming strength of Luffy. Meanwhile, Crocodile, realizing Luffy's increase in strength, tries to use his Sen to capture and immobilize him. However, Luffy, with his enhanced strength, manages to break free from Crocodile's sandy clutches and launches a powerful punch against him. The force of the impact is so great that Crocodile is sent flying, leaving a trail of sand in the air. The combat continues, with Luffy using his enhanced strength to face the challenges that Crocodile and Momonga present. On the battlefield, Luffy moves with dizzying speed, each step and each strike charged with the acquired strength. The fight is a whirlwind of movements, with Luffy at the center. Momonga, with his impeccable technique, launches a series of sharp thrusts, each aiming with lethal precision. Luffy, switching to his enhanced speed, dodges but feels the pressure of the Vice Admiral, who seems to predict and adapt to each of his moves. On the other side, Crocodile watches, waiting for the opportune moment. With a movement of his hands, he summons a wave of sand, trying to engulf Luffy. The pirate leaps high with moonwalk, avoiding the trap, but the sand follows his movements, like a living beast hunting its prey. Luffy lands, and at the same moment, has to block a surprise attack from Momonga. He counterattacks, and for a brief moment, it seems he will overcome the Vice Admiral, but then Crocodile's sand hits him from the back, throwing him forward. Luffy stabilizes, but the constant need to fight on two fronts begins to take its toll. He starts to feel the weight of the pressure facing a Vice Admiral and 7 warlords of the seas at the same time. The fight prolongs, transforming seconds into long minutes of incessant tension. In the heat of battle, a sudden explosion shakes the battlefield. Luffy, with a quick and fierce movement, strikes a nearby house, which collapses in a cloud of dust and debris. He emerges from the cloud, his silhouette defined by the violet flames that now envelop the Benaheim. With a war cry, he launches a wave of fire toward his adversaries. Momonga, with the agility of a master swordsman and instincts from his observation haki, dodges the flames' explosions, his figure a blur of precise and calculated movement. Crocodile, in turn, makes his body intangible, allowing the flames to pass through him without causing damage. His Logia ability to manipulate his sand form makes physical attacks useless without armament haki. Luffy, panting and sweaty, recognizes the difficulty of the situation. It's really hard fighting both at the same time. He murmurs, but his voice doesn't carry despair, but rather an unwavering resolution. He knows that transforming into Phase 2 could turn the game around, but the desire to prove his strength keeps him in his current form. With a new gleam in his eyes, Luffy launches himself back into the fight. I want to get stronger because this is just the beginning of my adventure. He murmurs and concentrates his strength, each blow charged with the weight of his ambitions and dreams. The Benaheim, surrounded by violet flames, becomes an instrument of power and determination in Luffy's hands. The battle unfolds like a furious storm of sand, steel, and fire. Luffy, despite the numerical disadvantage, fights with a tenacity that surprises his adversaries. He blocks, dodges, and attacks with precision born from pure will to win. Momonga and Crocodile, recognizing the strength of the pirate before them, increase the intensity of their attacks. The fight becomes a symphony of chaos, with each combatant seeking to surpass the others. Luffy, at the center of the battle, continues to fight, his sword an extension of his will, his flames a manifestation of his burning passion. As the fight continues, Luffy's determination grows stronger with each challenging moment. He faces each adversity with courage, ready to overcome all obstacles and emerge victorious. The battle for Rain Base is a trial by fire, a challenge that Luffy is determined to overcome, no matter the cost. As the fight continues, Luffy and his companions are not far behind, each facing their adversary who ended up catching them. Chapter 143, Alabasta 12. The battles between the Straw Hats and their adversaries turn the city into a war zone. The clash between Luffy and Vice Admiral Momonga and Crocodile creates a thunder of explosions and impacts that drown out almost all other sounds, the intensity of their fight overshadowing even the chaos around them. Shockwaves and sand explosions mix in a terrifying spectacle, with buildings crumbling under the force of the combatants. Not far from there, Zoro prepares to face Mr. 1, his gaze fixed on the opponent before him. The tension between the two swordsmen is palpable, the air vibrating with the unreleased energy of two warriors. Zoro, with a calmness that defies the chaos around, maintains his relaxed posture, but his sharp and focused eyes reveal his readiness for the imminent fight. Roronoa Zoro. Mr. One speaks, his voice laden with recognition and challenge. His ability to turn his skin into steel makes him a formidable opponent for most people SE. Time seems to slow down as the two prepare for the showdown. Mr. One, watching the slightest movement of Zoro's hands towards his swords, knows the battle is about to begin. He hardens his skin, turning it into blades ready to cut and slash. Suddenly, with a speed that defies perception, Zoro unsheaths his swords. The movement is a blur, a demonstration of his superhuman skill and speed. Mr. One, in response, advances with his own deadly offense, his steel blade shining with a cold and threatening light. The collision between the two is explosive, the sound of metal against metal echoing through the destroyed space. Zoro attacks with a series of quick and precise strikes, each movement a combination of brute strength and refined technique. Mr. One responds in kind, his attacks a deadly dance of precision and power as a shower of sparks rises at the spot. Meanwhile, around them, the battle between the Straw Hats and the forces of the Navy and Baroque Orcs continues. But for now, in this brief moment, all that matters to Zoro and Mr. One is the fight between them. Then, with a momentary recoiling movement, Zoro unsheaths the rest of his swords, the blade slicing through the air with a sharp sound among all the others. They advance toward each other, the distance between them disappearing in the blink of an eye. The fight begins with even more fierce intensity. With every blow Zoro delivers with his three-sword style, Mr. One blocks or deflects with his blade body. The sound of metal against metal fills the air, creating a chaotic symphony that resonates through the surrounding ruins. Despite the explosions caused by Luffy's fight, the rumble of clashes between Zoro and Mr. One still stands out on the spot. To a casual observer, the fight might seem a draw between two formidable swordsmen. However, for those with knowledge of fencing or with a sharpened observation haki, it's clear that the fight is uneven. This is disappointing. The captain took on the stronger opponents and I have to deal with just a subordinate. Zoro complains, his words loaded with almost disdainful boredom as his swords clash against Mr. One's. Don't underestimate me. Mr. One growls, launching a flurry of attacks against Zoro. But the Straw Hat swordsman seems to handle it easily. It's time to end this. Zoro decides, stepping back before advancing with surprising speed with his velocity technique. He is a green and black blur, a force of nature advancing against the backdrop of a ruined city. His strength, amplified by nearly 2 months of relentless training, is now an unstoppable storm. Mr. One, realizing the change in the intensity of Zoro's attack, feels a twinge of surprise. The expression of confidence he maintained until now is shaken by the speed and power of the swordsman. He tries to prepare for the attack, but Zoro is already upon him, his blade singing in the air, ready to deliver the final blow. Zoro, with a fluidity that defies comprehension, unleashes a devastating attack. His swords, an extension of his will and technique, slice through the air with deadly precision. He executes a clean and powerful cut with the Santra technique, a demonstration of strength and skill that reinforces his resolve to achieve his dream. Mr. One, with his ability to transform his body into cutting steel, tries to react. He hardens his skin, turning it into blades ready to intercept Zoro's attack. However, the speed and precision of Zoro are simply overwhelming. Zoro's cut slices through Mr. One's defenses as if they were made of paper. The sharp blade meets its target, and Mr. One feels the devastating impact of the attack, the sound of steel being cut echoing across the battlefield. For a brief and eternal moment, time seems to freeze. Zoro, still, watches the outcome of his attack while his swords still tremble with the force of the strike. Mr. One, with an expression of disbelief and pain, kneels, feeling the warm blood flowing from the wound. I lost. So easily. He murmurs, his words a whisper of incredulity and resignation as he collapses unconscious on the ground. Zoro, without a word, sheaths his swords with an elegant movement. He looks around, his gaze passing over the other battles unfolding in the city. I'll find the others, he said as he rose into the air with moonwalk. Meanwhile, on the other side, Rage faces Miss Doublefinger. The cook maintains her calm and confident posture, facing her adversary with a solemn gaze. Miss Doublefinger, in turn, assumes a defiant pose, hand on her hip, a confident smile on her face. What do we have here? She says, her tone hinting at a mix of interest and disdain. Rachel, still with a cigarette between her lips, exhales a slow puff of smoke. Without wasting more time, she kicks the ground, making it crack. With a speed that surprises even the most attentive observers, she activates instant transmission towards Miss Doublefinger like lightning. Her form becomes a pink blur. Before Miss Doublefinger can even process the speed of her opponent and even be surprised by it, Reiju is upon her. With a fluid and powerful movement, Reiju delivers a devastating kick. Sorry, I can't waste my time with you. There's a certain gothic woman fighting against 6 Commodores, and I don't want to fall behind. She says, her words laden with a casual tone. The impact of the kick sends Miss Doublefinger flying back with brutal force. She soars through the air, the impact distorting the space around her until she collides with a house, which shatters with the force of the blow. Miss Doublefinger falls, unconscious, defeated in a single, powerful attack. Now let's find that gothic woman. Reiju murmurs, activating Moonwalk to leap into the skies. Her elegant figure crosses the battlefield, leaving behind the trail of her victory. Meanwhile, Lami faces a group of adversaries. Surrounded by a group of Navy Commodores, she moves with confidence that belies her numerical disadvantage. Each Commodore advances with his own combat style and abilities, but Lami, in her room field, controls the battlefield with supernatural ability. She dodges and responds to each attack with precision. Using the Operation Fruit model, modification human, she swaps the Commodores' places, disorienting them, and removes parts of their bodies, incapacitating them. Her ability to manipulate everything within her room turns the combat into an almost one-sided game. 2 Commodores quickly fall, overwhelmed by Lami's intelligence and skill. They realize, too late, that underestimating the woman before them was a grave mistake. The Commodores, frustrated and confused, try to comprehend the situation. Damn it! How can we not beat her? Exclaims one, his voice shaking with anger and disbelief. He tries to shoot at Lami while executing an instant transmission, but his shots miss their target, deflected by her agility and skill. Another Commodore, firmly holding his sword, comments with frustration. This former bounty hunter possesses many of our styles, which even seem to be superior. How the hell does she have these abilities? His voice betrays the surprise and apprehension they feel when facing Lami. She's also using the power of the Operation Fruit model, modification human, one of the most expensive fruits in the world. Adds a third Commodore, his hands wrapped in brass knuckles, his face marked by concern and the urgency of the situation. Amid the discussion and frantic analysis, a green flash announces the arrival of a new combatant. Zoro lands beside Lami, a confident smile on his face. Finally arrived. He announces, holding one of his swords, ready to join the fight. Didn't get lost? That's a miracle. Lami comments, a note of sarcasm mixed in. On the other side, Reiju appears with a pink flash, attracting everyone's attention with her presence as well. Look at that, seems the weird woman is doing quite well. She observes, assessing the situation with a calm and calculating gaze. You know I can handle them, right? I've already defeated 2, how many have you taken down? Lami speaks, and her voice carries a tone of arrogance, but also a clear pride in her achievements. Reiju, discarding her cigarette with a carefree gesture, responds confidently. TSK. I defeated only 1 because there was only 1 to fight, so I came to take down these other 4. You can leave now and let a professional cook handle this. The Commodores, now cautious in the face of the 3 formidable Straw Hat adversaries, exchange worried glances. They knew that facing just one of them was already a considerable challenge. Now, with 3 fighting together, the situation seemed almost desperate. They silently wondered if they could really handle the combined strength of Lami, Zoro, and Reiju. Despite the latter not having a bounty on her head, she did not seem easy to deal with. Without wasting any more time, the pirate trio advances. Lami, Zoro, and Reiju move with coordination that seems almost orchestral. Each employs skills from the 6 styles of the Navy: Moonwalk, Instant Transmission, Iron Body, Finger Pistol, and Tempest Kick, turning the space around them into a whirlwind of movement and attacks. The battle becomes a spectacle of agility, strength, and precision between the 3 pirates and the 4 Marines. The intensity of the fight only increases. Lami, with her cunning and speed, disorients and attacks her opponents with quick and decisive moves. Zoro, using his strength and technique, cuts through the air and his adversaries with his swords, each strike more powerful than the last. And Reiju, with her lethal kicks, takes down one enemy after another, her combat ability as deadly as it is elegant. One by one, the Commodores fall, overwhelmed by the synergy and skill of the trio. When the last Commodore falls defeated, Reiju comments with a touch of pride. I took down 2 more, that makes 3 opponents down for me. Lami, crossing her arms and deactivating her room after unsheathing her sword, responds with a hint of friendly rivalry. You got lucky, I took down 1 more, so we're tied 3-3. But that doesn't make you better than me. Zoro, always focused and reserved, says nothing initially, just sheathing his sword. But then, a large wind with sand forms 200 meters away, drawing the trio's attention. The swordsman breaks the silence, observing the disturbance. Seems like the captain is having fun. Lamy agrees. I think Luffy is fine. He doesn't like it when we interfere in each other's fights when they are individual. The three agree with a mutual understanding, aware of the respect Luffy has for each one's personal battles. Let's go see the others then, suggests Reiju, ready to continue supporting wherever necessary. Using Moonwalk, the trio moves through the city's skies, observing the unfolding of other fights in the city. Chapter 144, Alabasta 13. While Lamy, Zoro, and Reiju were going to support the other crewmates fighting across the city, Luffy continues his grueling battle against Vice Admiral Momonga and Crocodile. The clash is intense, with waves of sonic explosions colliding in a tumult of destruction where they fight at high speed using Soru. Luffy, despite his dexterity and strength enhanced by the more fruit model, Amplify Human Devil Fruit, still feels the weight of the fight against these two adversaries. Vice Admiral Momonga, with his refined and precise swordsmanship technique, launches a series of rapid thrusts and sharp cuts. Each attack is charged with the intent to end the battle, forcing Luffy to constantly move, dodging and blocking while looking for an opening. On the other hand, Crocodile, with his ability to control and transform into sand, creates a constantly changing and unpredictable battle environment. He sends waves of sand, trying to engulf Luffy, while also defending, creating explosions with his flames hitting even Crocodile, but his body becomes intangible to avoid the attacks of the Straw Hat Captain. Luffy, in the center of this sand and steel storm, struggles to maintain control and is trying to take down Momonga with powerful blows with his fencing that started to get more decent, but still far from what he expected. This, combined with the Vice Admiral's dexterity and his ability to predict and react to Luffy's movements, makes it difficult for Garp's grandson to land a decisive hit. Meanwhile, Crocodile takes every opportunity to attack, the sound of his sand echoing through the battlefield every time he manipulated not just the area of his body but even created large attacks with the sand from the city's ground. Luffy might be having a lot of difficulty, but he maintained a small smile on his face. He kept a smile because he was learning from each exchange of blows. Luffy even put the capabilities of the more fruit model, Amplify Human Devil Fruit, into learning and training during this fight. His natural ability in battle shining even under intense pressure. He begins to predict Momonga's movements every moment, finding gaps in his defense. Against Crocodile, Luffy uses his intelligence and creativity, looking for ways to get around his Logia ability and his attacks. Luffy took a few steps back, avoiding a line of sand spears when his free arm with flames started to accumulate, and he launched it against Crocodile, making his flames explode everything that was on the street. Boom. Slash. In the midst of this, Momonga used Soru, and before Luffy could react, he cut with his sword filled with armament hockey his chest before jumping back to avoid Luffy's exploding flames from his body. At that moment, Luffy calmly looked at his chest. He felt pain, but he was in the adrenaline of battle. That was a nice hit, Luffy commented. Momonga didn't respond. He just stared at Luffy with his sword raised, ready for the next move. Sand Crocodile arrived next to the Vice Admiral, transforming from sand into a man. Ha 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 ha. This is quite fun, Luffy declares with a smile. Suddenly, his bleeding chest began to glow and he began to heal immediately, leaving only the old blood without any wounds. Even characters like Momonga and Crocodile couldn't help but be stunned by Luffy performing such a type of healing. I only knew Marco having this kind of healing, purple flames, healing, super strength and speed. You haven't even used your true zone form as I was reported. Momonga had a dark face. If Luffy hasn't even transformed yet in this fight, he began to have doubts if they could handle him. He began to fill his sword with hockey again, determined to give his all in this fight. Let's continue, Luffy said and advances, maintaining his animated smile. In the city of Alabasta, the battle between the Straw Hat Pirates and the combined forces of the Navy and Baroque Works agents reaches its climax. The fight is intense and fierce, with Luffy's team demonstrating their abilities and powers overwhelmingly. Hey, can we handle them? We're losing here. Elsewhere in the city at that moment, the Marines were being massacred. Reinforcements. Where are the Commodores and the Vice Admiral? Too late. A female voice emerges from above, and Nojiko appears, clenching her fist before striking the group. Boom. Nojiko, with her newfound confidence and enhanced abilities, descends from the skies like a force of nature. Her determination is evident on her face as she clenches her fist and hits a group of Marines with a powerful blow. The explosion from her impact resonates throughout the area, sending a clear message: the Straw Hats are not easy adversaries. Hey, how are things going? Nojiko turns and asks. Usopp, with his unerring aim, is strategically positioned atop a house. Each shot he fires is calculated, precise, eliminating his targets one by one. His expression is serious and focused, each shot accompanied by an explosion and one less enemy. Bang. Bang. This area is clear. Usopp spoke. Elsewhere. Is it over already, Broggy? Dory asked. It seems so, it was quite easy. Broggy said. Meanwhile, Broggy and Dory, the legendary giants, cause a tremendous impact. They walk through the city like titans, each of their steps a looming threat to their enemies. They look at each other and agree that the fight was easier than they expected, observing the devastation around them, with marines and agents scattered undefeated, a testament to their overwhelming power. Elsewhere, Mr. All Sunday. Did you betray us? Nico Robin, known to some as Miss All Sunday, faces her former Baroque Orcs companions. They accuse her of betrayal, but she responds with a cold calm. You could say that, because a man changed my life. She refers to Luffy, the captain who took her in when no one else would. Using her devil fruit abilities, she immobilizes them and, with one movement, breaks their necks, ending the threat they posed. The fight in Alabasta is showing the true power and unity of the Straw Hat Pirates. With each member playing their role and overcoming challenges, they are not just a crew, they are a family. They fight not just for themselves but for the future they wish to create together. As the dust of battle begins to settle, it becomes clear that the Straw Hats are a force to be reckoned with, ready to face any challenge the world throws at them. Boom. 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 Amidst the chaos and destruction, the fight between Luffy and Vice Admiral Momonga reaches a fervent climax. Luffy, with his unyielding spirit and thirst for learning, faces the skilled swordsman in a duel that seems more like an intense lesson. With each cut he receives, he learns, adapts, and improves, using the power of the more fruit model, amplify human devil fruit to accelerate his learning process in an almost supernatural manner. Momonga, with years of experience and refined technique, notices Luffy's alarming growth. The Vice Admiral's face reveals a mix of concern. He's learning quickly. Momonga thinks, his mind racing to find a way to overcome an opponent who adapts with every passing second, but he recognizes that Luffy possesses skin so tough that not even the hockey of his blade easily penetrates. The pirate before him is not a mere novice, he is a growing threat with each movement, each exchange of blows. Luffy, although unable to read Momonga's thoughts, can feel the tension in the air, the tacit acknowledgement from the sailor of his growing skill. He smiles, a smile that mixes pain and determination, knowing that his secret of the second devil fruit is still safe. Not even his grandfather, the great monkey D. Garp, had fully discovered the depth of his powers. As the fight continues, Momonga desperately seeks an opening, a chance to end the confrontation that seems increasingly uncertain. He wounds Luffy repeatedly, each strike drawing blood and marking the skin, but the pirate regenerates at an astonishing speed, a demonstration of the healing power of his devil fruit. This regeneration, though powerful, comes at a cost, consuming Luffy's physical energy at a voracious rate, but he was not the same as before. Luffy has grown, evolved beyond his statistics, his energy increased. The fight between Luffy and Momonga is more than just a physical battle, it's a test of will, skill, and the relentless spirit of a man destined to leave his mark on the world. And as the duel continues, with the city of Alabasta as its witness, it becomes clear that the world is watching the birth of a power like no other. The sound of clashing sword strikes creates a frenetic rhythm, a duel of metal that resonates across the battlefield, showing that Luffy is parrying more and more attacks with the opponent's hockey-imbued sword. He does not retreat and maintains a smile. Thank you for the duel. Swordsmanship has always been a problem, but our fight is making a great contribution. Luffy speaks excitedly. How are you doing this, pirate? Momonga reached the point of asking Luffy directly what is happening, even knowing that the pirate would not respond. As Luffy and Momonga continue their sword fight, Crocodile watches, calculating the perfect moment to strike. The seven warlords of the seas, always known for his cunning and power, decides it's time to change the course of the battle. With a subtle movement of his hands, he begins to manipulate the sand around him, concentrating it at one point. Suddenly, the sand begins to whirl violently, forming a massive sandstorm. The swirling sandstorm rapidly grows, engulfing everything in its path. Luffy, focused on his fight against Momonga, barely notices the approaching danger until it's too late. The sandstorm envelops him, dragging him away from his duel with the Vice Admiral and throwing him into the midst of the swirling chaos. That was good, Momonga said, observing the huge sandstorm spinning in the middle of the street more than 20 meters off the ground. They got me here. Inside the sandstorm, Luffy murmurs, despite the attack being powerful, his natural defense prevented this attack from being dangerous, his skin already not letting Momonga's hockey-imbued sword penetrate easily, hence Luffy didn't suffer any fatal blow. Now this sandstorm did more tickling than damage to him, although it created small cuts on his body. I didn't want it to come to this, but let's finish this. Since I've reached my limit in learning swords with Momonga, I won't last much longer healing myself all the time from his blows. Luffy decides to end the fight and looks around him. With almost no visibility and the cutting sand making each movement difficult, Luffy struggles to stay firm. Crocodile, from the outside, watches the scene with a cold and satisfied smile. He knows that the sandstorm is one of his most powerful techniques, capable of disorienting and wearing down even the strongest opponent. Meanwhile, Momonga watches the development with a serious expression, wondering if they would finally end the fight. Despite his loyalty to the Navy, there's a glimpse of respect for Luffy's skill development, feeling that it was a waste for Garp's grandson to follow a different path from his sister, Lucy. As both watched the sandstorm waiting for it to consume Luffy, suddenly, purple flames erupt within the sandstorm, consuming the sand and transforming the whirlwind of sand into a vortex of purple fire. The flames, fueled by the strength of the wind and the very sand, consuming it, grow in intensity and power, creating a spectacle of destruction and beauty. Suddenly, the sandstorm heads towards the two. What? Crocodile, surprised and furious at the unexpected turn, watches the sandstorm that now turns against him. His attempts to control and dissipate the fire are futile. The purple flames are fueled by the very force of the sandstorm he created, becoming stronger and more intense with each passing moment. What? Momonga, equally surprised, realizes that the situation has taken a dangerous and unpredictable turn. He tries to dodge. As the purple fire sandstorm continues to spin with indomitable fury, all watch with a mix of awe and terror. The flames of chaos, once unleashed, seem to have a will of their own, consuming everything in their path with relentless intensity. Luffy, at the center of the hurricane, turning Crocodile's sand trap into a hell of purple fire, had launched that bomb of chaos flames upon them. The firestorm sped toward them, scorching the ground at high velocity. As it neared, they had already jumped back, but the hurricane exploded in all directions, turning Crocodile into scattered sand and burning an arm of Momonga, who had to throw his navy cape away with the chaos flames. Let's start the second round. Luffy comments amidst the smoke, and his form is revealed to the two men, one trying to soothe the pain of his burned arm and the other gathering sand for his normal form, both frowning at the unexpected attack from Luffy. As the smoke and burnt sand settle, a figure emerges from the center of what was once the hurricane. Luffy, now transformed, stands in the middle of the battlefield. Luffy's metamorphosis into Phase 2 is spectacular and impressive every time he transforms, making his adversaries look with a bit of horror at Luffy, feeling that Luffy was several times stronger. His strength increases exponentially, raising his statistics to extraordinary levels. Crocodile and Momonga, still observing Luffy's transformation, feel a shockwave pass through them. They knew Luffy was a formidable opponent, but the sight of the Straw Hat Captain transformed makes them recognize the real danger he represents. Luffy, with his eyes glowing with fierce determination and his body emanating power, prepares to continue the fight. He is ready to face his opponents with newfound strength. Chapter 145, Alabasta 14. On the battlefield, now silent after the dissipation of the firestorm, Luffy, in his impressive Phase 2 form, faces off against Crocodile and Momonga. The two adversaries cautiously observe, their expressions mixing surprise and recalculated caution in the face of the young pirate's transformation. The air carries a palpable tension, a prelude to the continuation of the confrontation. Luffy, taking a deep breath, breaks the silence. I really wanted to beat you without resorting to this transformation. He begins, his voice carrying a note of disappointment and frankness. But I have to admit, I'm having trouble dealing with both of you at the same time. His confession is sincere, revealing not just his ambition, but also a pleasure for a fight where he would break his own limits. Crocodile and Momonga, hearing Luffy's words, cannot hide their surprise. Crocodile, with his usual confident and arrogant demeanor, now shows a glimpse of uncertainty. The idea that Luffy was holding back, and yet, he attempts to remain calm as he was still a Logia user, and Luffy didn't seem to get around that until now. Momonga, on the other hand, maintains his serious and unwavering expression. Even still feeling his burned arm, he stood firm, but now his eyes betray a reluctant acknowledgement of Luffy's newfound strength. You may be strong, Straw Hat, but justice will still prevail. Momonga responds, his voice firm. Please, don't come to me with that kind of thing. Who will prevail will always be the strongest, not who believes most in their ideology. Luffy had to mock, in this world, no matter how just you are, if you are not strong enough, you will be eaten by a bigger fish. Do not mock justice. Momonga raised his voice a bit furiously. What a justice-sensitive guy. This made Luffy raise an eyebrow and question if they do some kind of Navy brainwashing and hoping that his sister doesn't become that kind of soldier who doesn't even follow logic anymore. Well, let's continue then. Luffy comments, and while Momonga was furious, Crocodile growled at Luffy. In his transformed Phase 2 form, Luffy firmly holds the Benaheim sword, the blade emanating an energy from his flames even more powerful. In his purple-toned body, the amethyst flames surrounding him dance furiously. Taking a deep breath, he concentrates his energy, the aura of purple fire around his body increasing in size and intensity. Luffy then advances, his speed enhanced by his transformation making him appear more a blur than a human. He delivers a powerful strike with a sword, a combination of physical strength and energy from the chaos flames. Crocodile and Momonga, now facing the pressure of Luffy's amplified form, prepare for the attack. Crocodile, with his sand ability, tries to create a barrier to protect himself and dissipate the force of the blow. At the same time, he attempts to counterattack, launching a whirlwind of sharp sand towards Luffy, hoping to cut the fight in his favor. Momonga, with his posture of an experienced swordsman, anticipates Luffy's movement and positions himself defensively, strengthening himself with his haki. He knows that a direct block against an attack of such magnitude would be imprudent. Therefore, he opts for a more strategic approach, trying to deflect the blow while at the same time looking for an opening to counterattack the pirates' defenses. When Luffy's attack hits, the impact is so powerful that it resonates through the battlefield, a wave of energy that shakes the very air. Crocodile and Momonga feel the full force of that blow, each struggling to maintain their position and defense under the overwhelming pressure. The ground beneath them cracks and crumbles, and the air fills with the sound of their fierce struggle. Crocodile, surprised by the strength of the attack, barely manages to keep his sand form intact, while Momonga, although managing to deflect part of the impact with his superior technique, feels the pressure of Luffy's power, a force he did not expect from such a young pirate. Luffy, at the center of this storm of strength and fire, does not diminish his momentum. He delivers a powerful blow charged with all the force of infernal flames. The flames burst from his blade in a massive explosion, engulfing the battlefield with a wave of heat and light. The earth trembles, and a cloud of smoke and fire rises into the sky, marking the devastating impact of his power that was about to engulf Crocodile and Momonga. Crocodile, trying to protect himself with his sand ability, barely manages to form a barrier in time, but the force of Luffy's attack is so intense that the barrier is almost immediately consumed by the purple flames. He is forced to retreat, trying to reform and protect himself from the firestorm that threatens to engulf him. Momonga, on the other hand, is caught off guard by the sudden explosion. With not enough time to react or defend adequately, he is hit full force by the impact of the flames. His body is thrown backward like a projectile, flying through the air and destroying a nearby house with the force of his collision. The structure collapses under the impact, a cloud of dust and debris rising where Momonga fell. The Vice Admiral, stunned and wounded, struggles to rise from the rubble, the pain and shock evident on his face. He was already with a burned arm and this attack injured him even more, as he had blood trickling down his face. Luffy, standing at the epicenter of the chaos he created, looks at his adversaries with a solemn gaze while only the echo of the impact sounds. His purple flames still dance around him, a visual testament to the power he holds. He knows the fight is far from over, but this last attack was a reminder to Crocodile and Momonga that he is not the same as before. Luffy focuses his attention on Crocodile. The 7 warlords of the seas, still trying to recompose from the previous explosion, barely has time to prepare for the next attack. Luffy knows the only way to overcome Crocodile's Logia ability is by using haki, and he was pleased that he had been training it in recent weeks. With an intense look, Luffy concentrates a small amount of armament haki in his fist. The flames around his hand glow with a more intense light. He advances rapidly, each step increasing his speed and intensity. Crocodile, realizing his senses screaming for the first time in the fight, is surprised by this and tries to transform into sand to avoid the blow, but it's too late. Luffy, with the instant transmission technique, hits Crocodile with a powerful punch. The impact of the blow may not be amplified by haki, but Luffy has his natural monster strength. He hits squarely, with his fist maintaining a small amount of haki. Luffy was nullifying his ability to become sand as he did when he fought with Ace. The blow is so powerful that it makes Crocodile spit saliva, the impact reverberating throughout his body. Luffy doesn't give Crocodile time to recover from the shock of being hit or the damage the punch caused. He continues to attack, each punch and kick charged with haki and the fury of the purple flames. Crocodile tries to defend and counterattack, but Luffy is relentless. He gives a real beating to Crocodile. Straw Hat, you had haki this whole time. Crocodile growls with hate, while lines of blood run down his face. Luffy doesn't bother to respond and activates his instant transmission and moonwalk to reach the Sandman. Crocodile, once one of the most feared 7 warlords of the seas, is now on the defensive, dominated by Luffy's strength and determination. As he continues his relentless assault against Crocodile, Luffy pauses for a moment, his fists still ready for the next attack. With a defiant look and a mocking smile, he decides to say a few words to the stunned and overwhelmed 7 warlords of the seas in front of him. "Hey, Crocodile." Luffy begins, his voice full of confidence and scorn. "You call yourself the Lord of the Desert, don't you? Seems like you can't handle the heat." Luffy laughs, his purple flames reflecting in his eyes, lighting up his face with a wild and triumphant glow. "Crocodile, covered in wounds and clearly shaken by Luffy's power, looks furiously at the young captain. Straw Hat. Don't mock me. He growls, his voice full of anger and frustration. However, Luffy is not intimidated. I came here to Alabasta expecting a challenge, but I didn't expect to find a woman turned into a man so aggressive, Miss Croc. Luffy comments with a big smile to the man or woman of sand in front of him. Crocodile is in shock at Luffy's comment. How do you know about that? He explodes, trying to hit his claw against Luffy with a dagger at the tip. Surprisingly, Luffy does nothing, and the claw breaks as soon as it hits his skin, leaving Crocodile scared. It seems that even a lady of the desert can be buried in her own sand here today. Luffy says disdainfully. With a swift movement, Luffy prepares for the final attack. You've always relied on your Logia, that's why you lost to Whitebeard. Now you think you can change something by getting your hands on an ancient weapon? Nico Robin told you, didn't she? She betrayed me then. Crocodile growls. He hadn't seen Robin until the moment, so knowing she was with him in the south of the country, he was sure that Nico Robin was a traitor. Luffy didn't bother to answer, then advances. Crocodile feels his instincts screaming, now aware of the mortal danger he faces, tries to prepare for the inevitable. Luffy just applies force with Haki and punches Crocodile, exploding 2 flames on the warlord. Boom. The explosion ended with the flames revealing the body of the man who used to be seen as a hero in this country, falling like an unconscious doll on the ground. He just didn't die because Luffy's flames didn't do anything besides his Haki in the fist. Vice Admiral Momonga slowly emerges from the rubble of the house that his body destroyed during Luffy's attack. He is visibly injured, a burned arm with cuts and bruises spread across his impeccable uniform, now torn, burned, and stained with dust. However, despite his precarious situation, he maintains a dignified posture and a firm expression, the image of resilience and duty. As Momonga stands up, Luffy approaches him, his transformation still in full effect, the purple flames dancing softly around him. Luffy looks at the Vice Admiral with a serious expression, but in his eyes, there is a glimmer of respect. Vice Admiral Momonga. Luffy begins, his voice carrying a mix of challenge and recognition. You are really strong. It's not every day that you meet someone like you in the Navy. Besides my grandfather, nobody has fought so well with me from your organization since I entered the sea. Momonga, looking directly at Luffy, responds with a firm voice, despite the evident pain. Monkey D. Luffy, I don't care about your opinion. You are a criminal who possesses not only the 6 styles of the Navy but has shown even some mastery of Haki, so you must fall today. Momonga wasn't foolish in not seeing Luffy defeating Crocodile with his Haki, although weak at that moment. Doing that in Paradise was worrying and showed a lot of potential to be an enemy of the Navy in the future. There is a pause, a brief moment where only the distant sound of the battle fills the air. Then, Luffy smiles, a smile. Sorry, Vice Admiral, it's not going to happen. It's nothing personal against you or the Navy, but I won't let anyone stand in my way, so get ready to fall. Momonga, still recovering from the damage suffered and clearly aware of the threat that Luffy represents, assumes a defensive stance. His sword is ready, and his eyes, trained through countless battles, are focused on the Straw Hat Captain advancing. Luffy does not hesitate. He uses Soru and his increased speed to quickly approach Momonga, moving almost as a blur to the eyes of the spectators. His fists, even without Haki, he exchanges speed for the amplified strength of the more fruit model, Amplify Human Devil Fruit. Momonga reacts quickly, releasing his armament Haki and deflecting and counter-attacking with precision and skill. Each of his movements is calculated and precise, the mark of a master swordsman. However, the speed and strength of Luffy are overwhelming, and each block and deflection demands more from him. The sound of blows and the clash of weapons fill the air. Luffy, in a frenzy of attacks, doesn't give Momonga a moment's rest. Momonga, though pressured, maintains his calm and focus. In the midst of the fight, as both exchange rapid and strong blows, Momonga manages to create a small distance between them. Panting and with a look filled with frustration and anger, he faces Luffy. Monkey D. Luffy, you are a pirate, a criminal. I will not be defeated by someone like you. Luffy maintains his defiant posture and unshakable spirit. Stop with that nonsense, the strongest always wins. Luffy calmly replied, tired of the Vice Admiral's repeated phrase. Luffy advances again, delivering a series of rapid and precise attacks. With a quick movement and a powerful strike, Luffy manages to overcome Momonga's defense. The Vice Admiral is thrown back like the last time, the impact of the blow this time sending him to the ground with force. He tries to get up, but defeat is evident in his eyes. Momonga, lying on the ground, looks at Luffy with a mix of anger, frustration, and perhaps a glimpse of reluctant respect. This isn't right. How can you be so strong? Luffy, Not too hurt since he entered a phase 2 of his mythical zone, looks at Momonga with a serious expression. This is my determination to reach the top, and it won't be you from the Navy or those uncles who run the New World who are going to stop me. Luffy speaks with determination. With those words, Momonga falls unconscious. Luffy finally had finished his fight against the two formidable opponents. He stays for a while in the middle of the destroyed field with several houses destroyed around him while his flames burn all the time around his body. Chapter 146, Alabasta 15. Before Luffy defeats his adversaries or even enters the phase to dominate the fight, elsewhere in the city, Zoro, Rachel, and Luffy, having overcome the Marine Commodores and some agents of Baroque Works, moved in different directions to assist the other members of their crew. Zoro, with his sword still unsheathed, advances with a firm purpose. His imposing figure and the determination in his gaze cause any remaining agent of Baroque Works or sailor to hesitate before facing him. By his side, Rachel, with the grace and lethality of a predator, kicks the air, using moonwalk to move quickly and locate the next opponents. Lami, after deactivating her room, follows them, her confidence and skills unshakable, ready to use the Operation Fruit model, modification human to disorient and defeat anyone who dares challenge them. As they approach other confrontations, the presence of each turns the battle that was already easy into a massacre. The opponents, already tired and overwhelmed by the other members of the Straw Hats, now face a new wave of relentless adversaries. The agents of Baroque Works and the remaining sailors, realizing that the tide has irrevocably turned against them, begin to retreat, their morale broken by the overwhelming force of the Straw Hats. At that moment, in the city center and looking at the unconscious bodies on the ground, Luffy opened the shop and bought some chains to imprison his fallen enemies. He quickly put Seastone on Crocodile and surrounded the Vice Admiral with so many chains that he could not break with his haki. After that, he picked them up and started to walk towards Crocodile's casino to wait for the others. He might not have observation haki yet, but he knew that his crew would easily deal with the opposing forces. As the dust settles over the city's battlefield, the intensity of the fights begins to wane. The explosions, the screams, and the clash of steel against steel give way to a heavy and expectant silence. "Let's meet at the casino, I'll be waiting for you." Luffy speaks on his untraceable Den Mushi to the entire crew. Quickly, the members of the Straw Hats, one by one, begin to head to the designated meeting place, using moonwalk to find Luffy in front of the location, who had already undone his transformation, giving way to the usual carefree captain. The streets marked by the battles now serve as a silent path for the victorious to meet. "You finished them off," Rage commented, looking at Luffy's prisoners. "It was a fun fight. I learned a lot from them." Luffy was satisfied with the battle he fought. "Damn Captain, he should have left one for me. Especially the swordsman." Zoro still complained that Luffy took the two at once to fight. Crack. The giants arrived at that moment. "Hey, shall we go in there? What do you think, Dory?" "I think the captain should shrink us, Broggy. Come here, let's bring you to an acceptable size." Luffy spoke, waiting for the giants to approach to activate his abilities of the more fruit model, amplify human devil fruit. Vivi, and Shirahoshi, the mermaid princess, also joined the group. Ironically, Vivi was carried in the air with Shirahoshi using moonwalk with Megalo at her side. Despite not having directly participated in the fights, their concerns for their companions were evident. "Luffy-sama. Are you okay?" Shirahoshi asked, approaching Luffy with her innocence and kindness, looking at Luffy with eyes full of admiration and concern. Her question about his well-being is loaded with genuine concern and relief at seeing him safe and victorious. "I'm fine, Shira. Were you okay on the boat?" Luffy asked her. "Yes, Luffy-sama. Some bad men tried to attack us, but Chouchou-sama defeated them all," she said excitedly. "That's good. I see that the Desert Princess is emotional." Luffy turned to Vivi in tears as she looked at Crocodile, the Desert Lord who controlled the shadows of Alabasta, now lying powerless and unconscious, with special chains reinforced with seastone wrapping his body. "Thank you, Luffy, you defeated him. Now will Alabasta be safe? Did you save the country?" Vivi, with tears streaming down her face, is a mixture of relief, gratitude, and a bit of sadness for what her country had to endure. She goes up to Luffy and hugs him, being emotionally overwhelmed. The sight of Crocodile, her greatest enemy and a source of so much suffering for her people, now defeated and chained, is almost too much for her to process. "Well, for now everything is settled. If nothing strange happens, I believe it's all resolved," Luffy replied with a smile. Now without Crocodile, there was no reason for the rebels to start an attack, so Luffy thought. "You really defeated him?" Robin approached, looking at Crocodile alongside Momonga. "I told you. I didn't even need to use his weakness." Luffy smiled at the woman. The situation calmed down, and the fights stopped throughout the city, But the residents, realizing that the criminals controlled everything with the Marines and the men of the kingdom's hero, Crocodile, were shocked and feared for the future of the city as they locked themselves in their homes. Should we inform the people about the real crimes of Crocodile? Vivi asked, feeling the city's atmosphere. No, that won't help at all. Let's wait to hand over the evidence to the Marines, and speaking of evidence, Robin, can you lead the way to the casino? Luffy turned to Robin at that moment. Yes. She calmly replied and followed with Luffy and the others through the entrance doors. The group of Straw Hats, led by Nico Robin, entered Crocodile's casino. They enter the casino, the doors opening to reveal a luxurious interior, now silent and empty except for the frightened employees who were caught off guard by the sudden invasion. The employees, some still in elegant uniforms, look at the pirates with fear and confusion, not knowing what to expect. Luffy barely notices their presence. His mind is focused on the place reminiscent of Las Vegas for Luffy. I should have had some fun before starting this fight if it was possible. Luffy murmured, imagining a bit of fun betting on games and laughing with his women in this place. Anyway, there's still Guild Tesoro's Grand Tesoro in the New World. Luffy thought of another famous gambling house. His goal is to find what Crocodile hid, something he suspects to be of great value or importance. He turns to Robin, who remains calm and composed, despite the charged atmosphere. Robin. Luffy says, his voice firm. We need to get to the vault room, or wherever Crocodile keeps his most valuable treasures and documents. Do you know where it is? Robin nods. Yes, I know the way. The vault is in a fortified room on the lower levels of the casino. It's where Crocodile keeps not just money, but also information and items he considers important. Her voice is serene. Ignoring the frightened employees who shrink at their passing, the group moves through the casino. They pass by empty gaming tables, silent slot machines, and extravagant decorations, all testimony to the wealth and power Crocodile accumulated through his nefarious schemes. As they descend to the lower levels, the atmosphere becomes darker and more oppressive. Dim lights illuminate the narrow corridors, and the silence is almost deafening. Robin, however, does this not hesitate. She knows this path and what it leads to. Usopp, always the most vocal and expressive, can't contain his surprise and alarm when he comes across a crocodile lurking inside an aquarium. His exclamation echoes through the corridors, briefly breaking the oppressive silence. What is that? He shouts, instinctively recoiling with Megalo and Hippo. Rachel, on the other hand, stares at the crocodile with a calculating look and a comment about the animal's potential culinary use. Looks good, it must make great meat. She doesn't show fear or surprise, just a cold and practical assessment, typical of her nature. As they continue, passing what appears to be Crocodile's secret office, filled with documents on the table with maps. And then, finally, they arrive in front of a massive and reinforced door. It is clearly different from all the others they have encountered so far. It's here. Robin stops in front of it and turns to her companions. Luffy, with a knowing look, turns to Zoro. Zoro. He says, confident in the swordsman's ability. Zoro, with a smile that shows his enthusiasm for the task, steps forward. He unsheaths one of his swords, the blade faintly gleaming in the dim light. With precise and powerful movements, he attacks the door. Slash slash, the sound of metal cutting through wood and metal of the door resonates, a testament to his strength and skill. The door splits in two as he finishes, and the treasure room is revealed to the group. The interior of Crocodile's vault is a cave of wonders, filled with piles of money, bags of shining coins, glittering jewels, and rare artifacts. It's the result of years of manipulation, extortion, and power of Crocodile over Alabasta and beyond through Baroque works. Luffy enters. Crocodile was swimming in money. How much is here? Kuina asks, looking at the place. If Nami were here, she'd have said it in a second. Nojiko commented. Let's take everything. Luffy decides, looking around the vault. I'm not putting this into the system, let's clean this place out and take it to the ship. Luffy had decided that as much as he didn't have money in the system, he wanted to keep a considerable amount in the ship's vault to use with the crew. One by one, the crew members begin to fill their bags and pockets with the treasure from the vault. In a short time, the vault, once filled to the brim with the wealth accumulated by Crocodile, is emptied. The money is gone, now let's go for the documents. Luffy comments, and Robin begins to pick up some of them. There's a lot here, but it doesn't prove everything. Crocodile always made sure to destroy any evidence. But I have my own documents hidden in this city, let's pick them up as soon as we leave. Robin mentions, and Luffy nods satisfied. As the group walks toward the abandoned church, the air is charged with a mix of tension and relief. The city of Rainbase, once bustling with the energy of Crocodile's casino, is now eerily silent, a mute witness to the recent battles. Upon arriving at the church, Robin moves with a quiet grace, retrieving the hidden documents. She hands them to Vivi, who accepts them with trembling hands. These documents prove everything. Robin says softly, her tone serious and firm. Extortion, bribery, plans to overthrow the kingdom. Everything Crocodile did is here. Vivi leafs through the papers with a look of shock and sadness. I knew he was behind everything, but to see it in black and white. She murmurs, her voice almost getting lost in the vastness of the church. Luffy, watching the interaction, places a comforting hand on Vivi's shoulder. Now you have what you need to end all the conflicts in Alabasta, Vivi. Vivi looks up at Luffy, her eyes shining with renewed determination. Yes, we'll end them all. The group then heads back to the Black Pearl. The energy is a mix of exhaustion and satisfaction for some. I guess we can finally take a rest, right? Like no training. Usopp comments, trying to relieve the tension. We never rest. Zoro responds dryly, checking his swords. Chaozu, the loyal dog that has been a valuable member of the team, is among those who stayed behind, guarding the Black Pearl with the seriousness and dedication that only a guard dog can offer. Good boy, Chaozu. Luffy says, giving an affectionate pat on the dog's head. You took good care of our ship. The other crew members smile and pet Chaozu, who enjoys the attention and recognition of his efforts. With everyone on board and the evidence secure, the Straw Hats prepare to set sail. It was time to head to the kingdom's capital, Alabarna. Let's set sail, guys. Luffy announces, and the Black Pearl begins its journey. Chapter 147, Alabasta 16. Black Pearl was once again sailing through the desert while heading for the capital of the eastern country. At this moment, the moon painted the sky in the early hours of the morning, most of the Straw Hats deeply asleep, recovering from the battles and emotions of the day. The boat is quiet, with only the soft sound of the sands being dragged as the ship sways. Luffy opened his eyes at this moment. He was between his two naked women, Nojiko and Alvida. He carefully got up, not wanting to wake anyone, and put on a robe to leave the room. Luffy. You're going out again. It's Robin, isn't it? Nojiko opens one of her sleepy eyes with a yawn and asks Luffy, who smiles at her before making a face on her head. Nojiko, you're always perceptive. He said calmly. It's not hard to see the looks you send each other. She said as if it was the most obvious thing. Well, that's true. He had to admit. Anyway, if it means you'll be leaving the bed and waking up in the morning without you here, for God's sake, invite that girl to spend the night here. She complained. Robin is a bit shy. She seems to be getting used to this new kind of relationship. It's hard to explain. Luffy scratched his head a bit lost. Of course, he had talked with Robin about this, but the girl was still not ready to present herself in that way to the other women. I understand, but come back here in the morning, I promise a reward. Nojiko gave a seductive smile. Luffy nodded and left the room after dressing a bit. Luffy left the corridor and went to a specific cabin. He knocked on the door calmly. It's open. Luffy heard Robin's voice inside and opened the latch in the dark room. He quickly notices in the dark room a solitary figure ahead, standing near the window while looking at the ship traveling through the sand, looking at the night desert. Luffy approaches silently, observing her for a moment before speaking. What do we have here, a girl who can't sleep? He says with a soft voice. Robin turns to look at him, a slight smile on her lips. There's a lot to think about. She responds. And the night is full of surprises, isn't it, like a handsome man appearing in my room while everyone is sleeping. She speaks even with a seductive tone. Luffy agrees with a nod. Yes, it's a good time for thoughts. And an even better time for surprises. He smiles like a rogue and approaches her. He raises a finger, and a flame is born from it so he can see this woman better. Robin was in an open jacket with open underwear. She gets a bit embarrassed when Luffy sees her with the glow of his flame. I see you're wearing the lingerie I bought you yesterday. You look delicious in it. Luffy smiles, making Robin blush a bit more with Luffy's bold words. Then, gently, Luffy extends his hand and holds Robin's. She doesn't pull away, instead, accepting the gesture, their fingers intertwining. They remain like this, in silence, sharing the comfort of each other's company. Robin takes the initiative and approaches her captain for a kiss. Luffy takes her by the waist and takes her to bed. This night would be one he wouldn't sleep for the next few hours. As the sun rises on the horizon with its first golden rays over the Black Pearl, Crocodile and Momonga awaken from their unconscious state, finding themselves tied on the deck of the ship as if some kind of trophy. I see you've woken up. A thick voice was heard on their side, and both were shocked. Next to them, to their surprise, was another man also chained, Jinbai, the 7 warlords of the seas known as the Knight of the Sea. Jinbai. Momonga couldn't help but exclaim. I see that even you two have fallen into the hands of that pirate. It seems that Ace's brother is quite dangerous and even daring. Who would have thought that a rookie pirate would have a vice admiral and 2 7 warlords of the seas as prisoners on his ship? Jinbai murmured, as that was precisely the situation. Mujiwara. Crocodile, with an expression of disgust and anger, looks around, trying to understand how he ended up in this situation. The last thing he remembers is the crushing defeat at the hands of Luffy, and now, here he is, chained like a common prisoner. Momonga, equally surprised but with a more controlled composure, observes Jinbai. What is a 7 warlords of the seas like you doing imprisoned here? He asks, trying to piece together the unexpected situation. Jinbai, with a calm and serious look, replies, this pirate group has something important from the island of the fishmen. I tried to retrieve it, but as you can see, I wasn't successful against the captain. I was defeated and captured in the end. While Crocodile and Momonga process this information, they hear a new voice approaching. A princess surprisingly flying with moonwalk using her tail, enters the deck with a plant watering can. Shirahoshi, with her soft and melodic voice, begins to sing as they navigate through the vast desert of Alabasta, a song that reflects her gentle spirit and curiosity about the world. Under the blue sky, so vast and bright, we sail together, with hearts so light. Alabasta appears, with golden sands, each grain, a story, in the palms of our hands. Oh, what a wonderful world, so vast and so new, each day a discovery, under the sky so blue. With friends by my side, and Megalo too, we sing our joy, we sing to the beyond. Sharky, Sharky, Sharky. Megalo appears behind screaming with his friend, with his deep voice, echoes like a wave. Together we explore, with laughter and songs, with each new dawn, there's new emotions. Beneath the ocean, I daydreamed, now, on the surface, my soul is enchanted. Each new island, each new sea, is a blank page, to explore together. Oh, world, spin slowly, let me savor each precious moment, let's not rush. For with the Straw Hats, every day is special, singing with Megalo, my joy is complete. Sharky, Sharky, Sharky. Sings my friend, in this vast world, there's no longer danger. For with courage and love, and friends so loyal, every day is an adventure, under the blue skies. Her song echoes through the desert, a melody of hope and joy, while Megalo, by her side, accompanies with his Sharky Sharky. Making the moment even more special and memorable. Together, they celebrate the beauty of the world and the sweet freedom to explore it. Shirahoshi had the habit of watering some plants that Luffy picked up in Little Garden. Every morning she sang a song with joy. Jinbai. Good morning. Noticing Jinbai awake, she greeted him. Good morning, princess. Jinbai spoke a little embarrassed. Princess? Crocodile raised an eyebrow. So, is this what the Straw Hats have that's so important to the island of the fishmen? Momonga muttered. Yes. I thought Monkey D. Luffy had brainwashed her, but I no longer believe that. She's here of her own free will and is even learning skills from them. Jinbai grumbled. Skills? Momonga murmured, and looking wide-eyed, the Straw Hats were learning the 6 styles somehow. Maybe this was the chance to discover how they got their hands on the marine techniques. Hey, little girl. Momonga said. It's Princess, Vice Admiral. Jinbai grumbled. Listen. Princess? What is it, prisoner-sama? Shirahoshi looked at him curiously. Let me ask, this technique you're doing with your tail and flying in the air. It looks so cool, where did you learn it? TSK. To think that a Vice Admiral would act this way. Crocodile scoffed. Luffy-sama taught me. I can also do this. She seemed cheerful as she executed Soru, leaving Momonga shocked by this. That damn grandson of Garp, he's creating a crew using the 6 styles? He's a threat that must be eliminated. Momonga growled. Hey, don't threaten Luffy-sama. Shirahoshi, hearing this, became extremely angry, and her arm wrapped in a layer of darkness she punched the Vice Admiral in the head, making him fall unconscious again. Both Crocodile and Jinbai looked shocked at this. This little girl just used armament hockey and knocked out a Vice Admiral with a punch, chain or not. This shouldn't be simple. What is this? What's going on? Crocodile growled. He realized that Luffy wasn't the only threat to him. If that punch hit him, he would also be hurt, and this mermaid can use moonwalk and Soru. You can use hockey? Jinbai shouted, alarmed. How did that little frightened girl who stayed in her room in the palace suddenly become a woman who can use hockey and marine techniques? Shirahoshi spent more of her time learning mobility techniques because, for hockey, she showed growth that even made Luffy envious. Bippo might be the most talented member with the 6 styles, but Shirahoshi is the most talented with hockey. It might not be powerful, but she has already learned to manifest it. Luffy also taught me, cool right? My arm turns black, my punch becomes so strong. She said, throwing punches in the air while her arms were coated in hockey. At this moment, Luffy approaches, yawning. He looks at the small group with a carefree smile and a friendly wave. Good morning, guys. He greets, as if he were speaking to old friends rather than defeated enemies. Hope you slept well. Sorry about the chains, but you know, we can't have you causing trouble. He says and looks at Momonga a little surprised. Hey, why is he unconscious and his face has a line of blood? Luffy approaches and slaps the Vice Admiral on the head. Wake up. Before anyone could respond, Luffy had already woken him up with the slap. Where am I? Momonga was dazed at that moment. Luffy takes the opportunity and looks at everyone. Jinbai was still processing the idea of Shirahoshi using Haki, and Crocodile was looking at Luffy with a mix of hatred and fear. Mugiwara. He growls. This won't end like this. When I get free. Luffy smiled at Crocodile. Oh, that look of yours, I can feel your fear. Are you afraid I'll tell your secret around? Luffy commented. How do you know that? Crocodile exploded, startling Shirahoshi who hid behind Luffy. I have my ways, but anyway. Now, Crocodile. No need to be so gloomy this early in the morning. Enjoy the trip, who knows, you might learn something. Momonga, still trying to maintain his dignity, speaks, Monkey D. Luffy, as a Vice Admiral of the Navy, I demand. Ah, relax, Momonga. Luffy interrupts again, still smiling. You'll return to the Navy soon, I promise. But until then, be our guest. How does he call this being a guest? The three prisoners thought at the same time, as they looked at that damned pirate. Anyway, I have a question for you three. Luffy spoke again and continued. Would you like to join my crew? Luffy asked as if he was expecting a positive response. Of course not. The three shouted at the same time. Whatever, enjoy the day, let's go Shirahoshi, Reiju must be preparing breakfast by now. Luffy called her. Yes, Luffy-sama. She said and with Megalo, they followed Luffy to the kitchen of the boat. Luffy-sama? I think Robin is feeling sick. Shirahoshi suddenly spoke as they walked. What do you mean? I heard her making some strange sounds yesterday. Damn, you heard. Forget it, she's fine, it's a form of nighttime exercise. Luffy tried to end the conversation. Really? So she seemed to be having fun? It seemed like she was enjoying it then, can I learn to do that too? Shirahoshi asked expectantly, making Luffy fall to the ground. Definitely not. It wasn't Luffy who shouted, but Jinbai, annoyed with that conversation. If you take away the princess's innocence, I swear you'll pay, Monkey D. Luffy. Jinbai growled. Some time later, Luffy returns with the entire crew, and they spread across the deck. Some began to fight each other and even spar, like Reiju and Luffy. Some read books in chairs, like Robin and Nojiko. Some trained with swords like Zoro, Kuina, and Ecchi. Others played on the deck with straws, like Usopp, Chopper, Crew, Chaochu, Bippo, and Laboon. There were beach chairs with others sunbathing like Alvida, Vivi, while others were doing other things. While Crocodile, Momonga, and Jinbai remained chained, watching the movement on the deck, Luffy returns for a more extended conversation. He approaches with an air of casualness again, as if about to strike up a friendly chat. So, how are you feeling? Luffy asks, almost as if he's concerned for their well-being, but with a mischievous glint in his eyes. It's not every day that one is captured by the Straw Hats. Crocodile mutters something inaudible, clearly displeased with the situation, while Momonga responds with forced dignity, I don't want to answer any more questions from a criminal, but let me warn you not to think this will last. The Navy and the government will not let this pass. Luffy laughs. Ah, you are very useful to us here, and I doubt the Navy could send someone in time to stop us and rescue you. Luffy said and turned to the middle of the deck. As the conversation unfolds, the other crew members start preparing a feast on the deck, a celebration for the victory in Rain Base and the capture of the enemies. Tempting smells of food begin to fill the air, and soon a table is set up, filled with delicious dishes prepared by Reiju. The prisoners look at the feast with a mix of interest and resentment. The sight of the delicious food is torturous, considering their current situation. The Straw Hat members gather around the place, laughing, talking, and enjoying the food. They make toasts, celebrate their victories, and discuss future plans. The atmosphere is joyful and full of camaraderie. Although the prisoners are physically close to this scene of celebration, they feel isolated. Suddenly, Reiju, not wanting anyone to go hungry, appeared with plates of food and placed one in front of each. This is for you. She said and left the place. All three looked at the plate of food with a delicious smell and a silence formed in the atmosphere. How does SHE expect us to eat this? All three shouted angrily. As they were tied up, they couldn't enjoy the dish. Suddenly, Chaochu, sensing the smell of the food, approaches the prisoners. Woof! Woof! He barked. Hey, what do you want, dog? Crocodile growled at the dog. But Chaochu didn't care and started to eat the 3 plates. Damn! Dogwara. You mongrel, how dare you eat that food? Criminal dog, I'll show you what justice is made of. Crocodile, with a spasm of anger, being humiliated all the time, reached the limit when a dog ate his plate of food, and he managed to hit Chao-Chu with a kick, breaking the plate of food. Chao-Chu looked at that surprised. You liked that, damn dog. Crocodile smiled, seeing that he was humiliating at least someone from the crew, but what would follow was not something he expected. The dog growled at him and suddenly started to grow, turning into a four-legged, three-headed monster. Until reaching 10 meters in height and 20 in length on a 50-meter ship. Jinbai. Crocodile. Momonga. All three looked alarmed at that dog that turned into that monster, each head revealed an element, ready to kill the three. Damn crocodile. You're going to cause our death here. Jinbai shouted, scared seeing that lightning was being pointed at him. What's with this crew, how can they be rookies, even the dog is a monster? Momonga was in a scared tone. Hey, Chao-Chu, don't kill them. Luffy suddenly said next to him, and the monster stopped charging fire, lightning, and ice in his mouth. Chao-Chu obeyed, going back to his common dog transformation. Woof woof. He barked. Good boy, now go with Usopp and the others, I'll deal with these guys here. Luffy said, and Chao-Chu obeyed. From what I see, you can even irritate my pet, you would have died if those attacks were launched from this distance with you defenseless. Luffy crossed his arms dissatisfied. He calls that thing a pet? Everyone exclaimed mentally. Enough, you are very annoying out here, let's take them inside. Luffy concluded, taking them off the mast and leading them inside the ship. Come on, guys. Time to go to your temporary accommodations. Luffy says with an ironic smile, indicating that they will be taken to the cells on the ship. One by one, he and some other crew members begin to escort the prisoners through the ship, towards the area designated as temporary prison. As they move through the ship, they pass by the agents of Baroque orcs who are already imprisoned. At the sight of their former leaders and the renowned Vice Admiral of the Navy being escorted as prisoners, the agents are dumbfounded. The looks go from surprise to fear, and some even to reluctant admiration, as the reality that their leaders were brought down by the Straw Hats begins to sink in. Crocodile, with his pride still intact, walks with an aura of forced indifference, but the murmurs and looks from his former subordinates clearly affect him. He was their unquestionable leader, a figure of power and fear, and now his downfall is exposed for all to see. Momonga, on the other hand, maintains a dignified posture, his expression firm and controlled. As a representative of justice and order, being captured by pirates is a shameful situation, but he does not allow his emotions to show, determined to maintain his sense of duty and honor even in defeat. Jinbai, always calm and thoughtful, silently observes the scene around him. This isn't his first time here. Once everyone is inside cells, Luffy throws another prisoner he had kept in his pocket, and Mr. One falls into the cell with Crocodile. In the end, he looks at them and says, rest a bit. Tomorrow is another day, and who knows what it will bring. With that, he walks away, leaving the prisoners and returning to continue his own activities. Some time later, the atmosphere on the Black Pearl, which until then was permeated by a sense of victory and post-feast relaxation, is suddenly interrupted by the urgent sound of a den mushi. Luffy, recognizing the characteristic ring, approaches and answers the call, only to hear the worried voice of Nami on the other end. Luffy, we have a problem. Nami begins, her voice tense with urgency. The rebels have initiated an attack on the capital. It seems that one of the Baroque Orcs members who wasn't captured gave the signal to start the attack. They think it's time to act, now that Crocodile has been defeated. Luffy sighs deeply, with evident frustration on his face. He understands how volatile the situation in Alabasta still is, especially with the power vacuum left by Crocodile's schemes. He has no way of putting a stop to the moving rebels, who must be over 40,000. Vivi, who was nearby, overhears the conversation and immediately her expression changes to one of fear and concern. The rebels attacking now? That's terrible. They don't know that the real enemy was Crocodile. They're going to march straight into a trap or an unnecessary battle. She says, her voice trembling with the possibility of more bloodshed in her beloved kingdom. Luffy looks at Vivi, his eyes full of determination. We're not going to let that happen, Vivi. We're going to help stop this fight before the attack starts. He assures, his voice firm with the promise. Turning to the rest of the crew, who are now attentive to the conversation, Luffy announces, it looks like we have one more thing to take care of before we go to the capital of Alabasta. We can't allow this fight to continue. Let's stop the rebels. The Straw Hat crew nods in agreement, ready to follow their captain on another critical mission. They quickly begin preparing the ship to change its course to where it was heading. As the Black Pearl adjusts its course toward the south of the capital of Alabasta, Alubarna, Luffy approaches Vivi, whose expression reflects a storm of emotions. She is visibly shaken by the news of the rebels' imminent attack, worried about the fate of her people and her kingdom. Luffy, with his usual mix of seriousness and optimism, places his hand on her shoulder, trying to convey security and confidence. "Vivi, I know you're worried, but we'll solve this together," he says, looking directly into her eyes. "You've seen what we're capable of. We'll get there and do everything we can to stop this fight before it causes more damage." Vivi looks at Luffy, his words bringing a glimmer of hope amid her anxiety. "Thank you, Luffy," she responds, her voice still trembling but now with a new determination. "I trust you and the crew. Let's save Alabasta." With an encouraging nod to Vivi, Luffy walks away. The fate of Alabasta is at stake, and the next moments will define the future of the kingdom. And so, with the Black Pearl cutting through the dunes towards the location where it would meet the rebel group. Chapter 148, Alabasta 17. In a corner of the sea, at Marine headquarters, a tranquil atmosphere fills the air in the highest room of the imposing marine structure. Sengoku, the venerable commander of the Navy, is in his office when the shrill sound of a dendenmushi interrupts the silence. He answers, his expression already prepared for important news, as this line was first filtered through other Marines so that only the most important news would pass directly to him. However, nothing could have prepared him for what he is about to hear. On the other end of the line, a Marine with a trembling voice reports, "Sengoku-san, we have urgent news from Alabasta. Vice Admiral Momonga. He has been captured by the Straw Hats. Crocodile has also been captured by them. We engaged in conflict with the pirate crew, but we were completely defeated, even Vice Admiral with Crocodile against Luffy, they were defeated by the pirate captain alone." For a moment, silence reigns in the office. Sengoku, known for his control and composure, cannot believe what he has just heard. His normally calm face is now a mix of disbelief and irritation. "What did you say?" he explodes, his voice rising in frustration. "Momonga, captured by pirates? And Crocodile too? That is inconceivable." The Marine on the other end of the line continues, explaining the details they received, how Luffy and his crew managed to overcome both the 7 warlords of the seas and the Vice Admiral, a feat few could imagine being possible. Sengoku rises from his chair, his mind racing with the implications of this news. "This is a disaster," he mutters to himself. "Not only has one of our Vice Admirals been captured, but this means that the Straw Hats have become an even greater threat than we anticipated. Using Haki and all the members who fought using the 6 styles?" With a firm determination in his eyes, Sengoku begins to issue orders. "Mobilize the forces immediately in Alabasta. Smoker must be in the country too. We need to rescue Momonga and deal with the Straw Hats before they cause more havoc." "Yes, Fleet Admiral." The Marine on the other side of the line responded. As the call ends, Sengoku sits back down, pondering the next steps. The capture of Momonga by the Straw Hats is not just a significant blow to the Navy, but an alarming sign of the growing power and audacity of the pirates under the command of Monkey D. Luffy. Sengoku looks at the only person in his room and frowns. "Garp. Your grandson captured a Vice Admiral and 7 warlords of the seas. Your family is causing trouble again." Garp, in contrast to Sengoku's irritation, is sitting on the other side of the room, an almost paternal expression of pride on his face. Upon hearing the news, he explodes into a booming laugh, echoing through the walls of the office. "Boo-ah-ha-ha-ha-ha-ha. That's right, Luffy. Show them what the monkeys are made of." Sengoku looks at Garp with a mix of disbelief and irritation. "Garp, this is no reason to celebrate. Your family is turning the world upside down. Your grandson is a wanted pirate, and now he's capturing important figures of the Navy. How can you be so unconcerned?" Garp, still smiling, shrugs, clearly not sharing Sengoku's concern. "Ah, Sengoku, you know how it is. The young will be young. Luffy is just following his path, just as I followed mine, although I tried everything so that he could follow the same path as his sister. But you have to admit, capturing a Vice Admiral and 7 warlords of the seas is not something just anyone can do. I'd say the boy has a bright future ahead." Sengoku, clearly frustrated with Garp's laid-back attitude, shakes his head in disgust. "You are one of the heroes of the Navy, Garp. You should be concerned about the impact your grandson is causing. His actions are no joke. They have real consequences and are putting the Navy in a difficult position." Garp laughs again, standing up and walking towards the door. "Ah, Sengoku, always so serious. I trust Luffy. He has a good heart. And as for the consequences, well, I think the Navy can handle a little upheaval." With a nod of his head and a smile, Garp leaves the room, leaving Sengoku alone with his thoughts and concerns. Sengoku, still feeling the weight of the situation and the urgency to act swiftly, recognizes that he needs a firm and effective response to deal with the capture of Momonga and Crocodile by the Straw Hats. With a heavy sigh, he stands up, knowing that immediate actions are necessary not only to rescue the captured but also to maintain the authority and respect of the Navy. We cannot leave this unanswered. We need to send someone trustworthy and powerful enough to handle the Straw Hats and bring back Momonga and Crocodile. He murmurs to himself. Sengoku picks up another Den Mushi and dials a specific number. The Den Mushi rings a few times before a familiar and calm voice answers from the other side. Hello? A lazy voice comes from the other side. Kyuzen. Sengoku begins, his voice carrying a grave tone of authority mixed with concern. We have a situation. Momonga and Crocodile have been captured by the Straw Hats. We need you to go to the beginning of the Grand Line and bring the two back. I'll send all the data by fax. On the other side of the line, Kyuzen responds with a calm that almost seems misplaced given the gravity of the situation. Understood, Sengoku. I will handle it. Sengoku nods, even knowing Kyuzen can't see him. Your skill will be crucial. We know the potential of Luffy and his crew. Be prepared for anything. Kyuzen, in his typically succinct response, simply says. Understood. Before the call ends, Kyuzen receives the papers on his side, given by the Marines who fought against the group in Rain Base, which included photos of all the crew members, and one catches his attention, Nico Robin. The child he spared almost 20 years ago as a favor to an old friend in Ohara. Well, you're with them then. He says calmly. On Sengoku's side, now a bit more relieved to have one of his best on the case, he sits down again, but his mind continues to work frantically. Sending Kyuzen is a significant move, and the consequences of this decision may reverberate throughout the world. However, he knows it is a necessary action to maintain the order and justice that the Navy strives to uphold. Sengoku feels a growing frustration bubbling within him, a feeling uncommon for a man of his position and experience. He is accustomed to dealing with crises and threats, but the current situation seems to be unfolding on a scale and speed that even he did not anticipate. He paces back and forth in his office, his mind working at a rapid pace. First, we have 2 Four Emperors commanders sailing in paradise. Ace from Whitebeard and Jack from Kaido. He murmurs to himself. As if that weren't enough, now we're dealing with a rookie. But he's not an ordinary rookie. Garp's grandson has considerable strength and an impressively competent crew. This is becoming a worrying pattern. The worst part is that they have somehow gotten their hands on techniques taught to the elite of the Navy, now they're even learning hockey on this side of the sea. Sengoku pauses for a moment, looking at the large world map hanging on the wall of his office. He observes the marked territories, the known routes of pirates, and the positions of the marine bases. This isn't just about Luffy or the Straw Hats. He thinks aloud. It's a reflection of the state of the world now. Powerful pirates are emerging everywhere, challenging the balance of power we've maintained. A new era is dawning, and it's bringing with it a wave of changes that we cannot ignore. We need to reign in this era of pirates. We need to do something grand, to show the world that even the most powerful cannot handle the justice of a navy. We need to show our power to the world. With these thoughts in mind, Sengoku begins to devise numerous plans, gathering his resources and intelligence. He is determined to create something to ensure that justice prevails in Alabasta. Aboard the Black Pearl, the atmosphere is one of preparation and anticipation, with the Straw Hats training every day and every moment they can. Luffy, with his role as captain always in mind, is thinking not just about the next battle, but also about how to strengthen his crew. He knows that each member has a crucial role to play, and ensuring that everyone is at their best is essential for the group's success. Hugo. Come with me outside. In the midst of his thoughts, Luffy calls Hugo, one of the most robust members of his crew in the middle of training. Hugo approaches, curious about what his captain might want to discuss. Hugo. Luffy smiles, his expression full of confidence. You have been doing very well, and I know you have been working hard training and fighting, but I think you can benefit from something more specific. I thought of something that can increase your abilities and give you an extra edge. Hugo tilts his head, curious and slightly anxious. I'm listening, Captain. What do you suggest? Luffy, with a confident smile, pulls something out of his pocket. It's a strange fruit, with spiral patterns and what looks like a monster's face on it and an exotic coloring that resembles rocks. Hugo looks at it, curious about what it could be. Captain, is that the fruit I found? Hugo asks, looking at the fruit with interest. That. Luffy begins. And it's not just any. It's the Life fruit model, Titan, as I mentioned before. You found it, and it wasn't by chance. Zone has its own will, and it chose you. It's time for you to have what already belongs to you. Luffy declares. Hugo looks at the fruit, surprised and a little hesitant. It chose me? Yes, let me explain its power. Luffy begins, tossing the fruit from one hand to the other, considering how to explain. It will give you the ability to transform into a Titan. Think of it as immense strength and enormous power. It's a rare and powerful fruit that only I and Nami have at this moment. I control the flames of chaos, Nami the wind, and your fruit will control the earth. Hugo falls silent, absorbing the gravity of the decision before him. Eating a devil fruit is a lifelong commitment. He would lose his ability to swim, a significant disadvantage at sea, but in return, he would gain incredible powers. Captain, are you sure about this? It's a big change. What if it's too much for me to control, and I can't use this power to its full strength? I remember how Nami lost control of her fruit, and it caused great chaos in Kokoyasi. Hugo feared hurting people with this power out of control. Luffy smiles, his confidence unshakable. I wouldn't have offered it if I didn't believe in you, Hugo. You are strong, and with this fruit, you will become even stronger. And you won't be alone. All of us will be here to help you control and understand your new powers. Even if you lose control, I will help you as I helped Nami back then. By giving me a beating, Captain? Hugo joked, recalling how Luffy dealt with Garuda based on punches. You might say that. Luffy didn't lie. If he had to beat down Titan, he would do it. Hugo looks at the fruit, then at Luffy. He sees in them not just companions, but a new family. With a deep breath, he makes his decision. All right, Captain. I trust you. I'll eat the life fruit model, Titan. With determination, Hugo takes the fruit as Luffy tosses it to him, and with a resolute movement, he bites. The taste is terrible, but the potential power he feels growing within him is undeniable. With the life fruit model, Titan now part of Hugo, the Straw Hats have just gained a new power in their ranks, and it's colossal. I can feel it, Captain, I'm getting much stronger. He exclaims with euphoria. That's good. Luffy said, observing Hugo's status at that moment growing. Luffy smiles, satisfied and proud. Welcome to your new strength, Hugo. Now, we are strongest. Chapter 149, Alabasta 18. As the Straw Hats prepare for their arrival in the southern region of Alubarna, in the capital itself, there is chaos as news of 40,000 rebels heading toward the capital is reported throughout the city. In the palace, the royal guard is preparing to defend the monarchy, ready to face the rebels in battle. While everyone was unconcerned about it, Yamato and Nami seemed calm, knowing that their powers could deal with 40,000 ordinary people. They themselves would stop the attack, but Luffy said he would do it with a certain style, so both women had to obey their captain. The Black Pearl, with the Straw Hats on board, advances quickly through the vast sea that cuts through the country of Alabasta. It has been 2 days since they received news of the rebels' movement. Luffy knew he had time, so he was not worried about increasing the ship's speed to focus the powers of his devil fruit on training. The crew, seeing their captain calm about the situation as if he had it under control, also remained calm. Only Vivi is tense and worried, as Alabasta is her home. While the Black Pearl finally in the southern area of the capital where the exercise was moving. Hey guys, we're approaching the rebels. We need to think about how to deal with this situation without causing more bloodshed. Luffy announces. Luffy, these rebels are my people. They are suffering and just want to be heard. We need to approach this carefully and with understanding. Vivi practically begs. Guys, I have a plan. Instead of fighting, we will try to scare the rebels so they stop advancing. I could use my Conqueror's Haki, but I want something more striking. The crew members exchange curious glances, wondering what Luffy has in mind. Luffy, what are you planning? We need to be careful not to hurt anyone. Vivi asks Luffy again. Don't worry, Vivi. We won't hurt anyone. Hugo, are you ready to show the power of your new devil fruit? Hugo, who was listening intently, nods his head, a mix of nervousness and excitement on his face. Luffy had already spoken to him a moment before. Yes, Captain. I'm ready. I'm still learning to control the power, but I'll do my best. Hugo nods. Great. So here's the plan. Hugo will transform into a Titan with his life fruit model, Titan. The appearance of a Titan should be enough to scare the rebels and make them rethink their attack. That's quite dramatic, Luffy. But it seems like it might work. Wow, this is going to be amazing. A real Titan. Just make sure to keep control, Hugo. We don't want to cause real damage like being crushed by such a monster. Understood. I'll focus on maintaining control. I'll try not to let you down. And we'll be here to support you, Hugo. I'll transform with you and ensure everything goes well. Luffy speaks confidently. As the ship advances, everyone prepares to witness the power of the life fruit model, Titan, and Vivi especially hopes that this bold act can prevent a larger conflict and bring peace to Alabasta. Hugo, listening to Luffy's plan, hesitates a bit, remembering the previous incident with Nami and Kokoyasi. Luffy notices the hesitation and fear in Hugo. Are you afraid of your power? Luffy asks. Captain, I understand the idea, and it's true that a Titan transformation could scare the rebels. But I'm still worried. I remember what happened with Nami in Kokoyasi. She lost control of her devil fruit, and you had to intervene. The fight between two econs caused a lot of destruction. I'm a bit afraid that I might lose control. Hugo, I know you're worried, and I understand. What happened with Nami was dangerous, but we learned a lot from that. And you won't be alone. We'll all be here to support you and help maintain control. Plus, you're strong, and I trust you. Hugo, I'm also concerned about the safety of my people. But I know that you and Luffy have good intentions. If we decide to go ahead with this, please be as careful as possible. And we'll be on the lookout, ready to intervene if something goes wrong. You're not alone in this, Hugo. And I'll be here with my medical kits, just in case. We'll do this together. Hugo looks around, seeing the confidence and support in his fellow crew members. He knows the situation is delicate but also feels a responsibility to use his new powers to help. Thank you, guys. With you by my side, I feel like I can do this and maintain control. I'll focus and do everything in my power to prevent what happened with Nami from happening again. Let's avoid conflict and protect Alabasta. With renewed determination and unwavering support from his crew, Hugo prepares for the plan. As the ship stopped in the middle of the desert, finally, since they were only a few kilometers from the rebels, Luffy and Hugo move away from the Black Pearl, finding an open space where Hugo can perform his transformation without putting the ship or his crewmates in danger. The crew watches with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. Luffy turns to Hugo, giving him an encouraging nod. Go, Hugo. You can do it. Hugo takes a deep breath, closing his eyes and focusing on the new strength that now resides within him. He feels the energy of the Life Fruit model, Titan pulsing, waiting to be released. With renewed determination, he takes the first step to become the giant he now knows he can be. At first, a slight tremor can be felt in the ground, almost imperceptible. But as Hugo gives himself more to the transformation, the vibration becomes more pronounced. He begins to grow, his stature rapidly increasing. The crew watches, agape, as Hugo transforms into a colossal figure. The Econ no Mi, Titan reveals its true form, a vision of power and primal strength. Hugo, now an impressive 100 meters tall, is the tallest among the Econs. His skin, reminiscent of compacted rock and soil, displays a rough and irregular texture, with hues varying between shades of brown and gray. He is the living image of the Earth's strength, imposing and majestic. Crack. The first thing the Titan did was try to balance himself with that size. The ground exploded with his foot. With each step Hugo takes, the ground trembles, and the sound resonates like a controlled earthquake. His eyes, glowing like precious minerals, reflect an ancient and powerful light. He looks around, now seeing the world from a completely new perspective, feeling the immense strength running through his body. Luffy looks up at Hugo's gigantic form and can't help but smile with admiration and pride. That's incredible, Hugo. Now, let's show the rebels your power. I'd love to see their faces with your form. Luffy knows that now it's his turn to transform to deal with Hugo should he lose control, and it would also increase the visual impact they'll present to the rebels. With a determined smile, Luffy focuses, feeling the energy of his own devil fruit, the Life Fruit model, Chaos Ifrit, boiling within him, ready to be unleashed. He steps forward, his eyes glowing with an internal flame. Time to show our power, Hugo. Luffy prepares for the final transformation, concentrating deeply on the fiery power that dwells within him. His eyes take on an intense red hue, reflecting the fiery energy about to be released. Around him, the air begins to vibrate with heat, and flames furiously dance, creating a violent whirlwind that envelops his body. Then, with a powerful roar that resonates like thunder itself, Luffy releases the contained energy. The flames explode in a fiery pillar, a column of fire and power that stretches toward the sky. The heat is so intense it seems to melt the very atmosphere around, and the light of the flames illuminates the area with the strength of 1,000 suns. When the display of fire and fury finally comes down, Luffy's transformation is complete. He is now in his final form of Ifrit, an imposing and majestic vision. His skin appears burned, covered in an armor of amethyst that glows with an inner sheen. Curved horns emerge from his head, and his gaze is fierce and penetrating. Vibrant flames continue to dance around his colossal body of 50 meters in height, a living testament to the power he holds. Beside Hugo, now also transformed into an imposing Titan, Luffy, in the form of Ifrit, advances. Together, they would approach the rebels, their enormous and powerful presences sending a clear message without the need for words. They would be a power they could not go against. Anyone in this world would be stunned at the sight of these two colossi. On the ship, the expressions were quite unique. Zoro, maintaining his usual calm posture, cannot hide an expression of respect. Never underestimate Luffy. Or Hugo. These guys are on another level now," he said, looking up at a monster of 50 meters and another twice its size. Usopp, with eyes wide in admiration and a hint of envy, babbles with enthusiasm. "This is amazing. Luffy and Hugo are like monsters. Who would have thought we'd see something like this so soon after Little Garden? This is truly amazing, but I hope they can maintain control. We have to be ready for anything." Nojiko spoke. Chopper jumps excitedly, impressed with the transformation. "Wow. They're so big and strong. This is like something out of a storybook." Robin, always serene, smiles softly, but her eyes reflect the pride she feels. "Impressive. I expected no less from our captain and Hugo." Vivi, concerned for her people and her country, maintains an anxious look. "I hope this helps to calm the situation without causing more fear or damage. Please, Luffy, don't smash anyone like that monster." While Brogy and Dory, the giants, exchange looks of recognition, understanding the magnitude of the power that Hugo and Luffy now display. "They look like true warriors now." Dory comments with a nod of approval. The crew, although impressed and a little intimidated by the transformation, trusts their companions and is ready to support them. They know that with Luffy and Hugo at the forefront, it would be enough to handle a group of 40,000 with his form. As Luffy, now in his imposing Ifrit form, positions himself next to Hugo, transformed into a titan, he looks on with a mix of admiration at the colossal size of his companion. Hugo, twice the size of Luffy, is a truly impressive figure, evoking the raw and untamed power of the earth. Luffy is about to take the first step and approach the rebels, hoping that their sight discourages any further conflict, when suddenly, without warning, Hugo, in his titan form, turns and delivers a powerful punch towards Luffy. The roar of rage that accompanies the blow echoes through the area, a primal and wild sound that sends shivers down the spine of anyone who hears it. Hugo's fist strikes Luffy, sending him back with the force of the impact. Luffy, surprised but resilient, quickly recovers in the air, his eyes turning to the enraged titan at that moment. He immediately understands what happened. Hugo has lost control over his transformation. Chapter 150, Alabasta 19. As the dust and sand raised by the impact of the Titan's colossal fist settle, Luffy, in his Ifrit form, flies backward. He is visibly shaken, his hand on his jaw, feeling the weight of the powerful blow he just received. Hugo's punch, in his uncontrolled Titan form, was a powerful right hook enough to make even the sturdy Luffy feel the force of its impact. "Damn, Hugo. That was quite a punch. A big right hook." Luffy murmurs to himself as he adjusts his jaw. He looks at Hugo but doesn't seem overly concerned, unlike his crew who watched the scene with slightly worried eyes. Luffy just cracked his colossal neck, ready to fight Hugo as he stared him down. Hugo's eyes, now red and wild, show no sign of recognition, just the uncontrolled fury of a being that has lost its connection to humanity. He roars silently again, preparing for another attack, while Luffy positions himself to fight the Titan. "I have much more control of my fruit than when I fought against Nami. Let's see if I can handle a Titan more easily." Luffy thinks calmly. He wastes no more time and prepares to face the challenge of calming an enraged giant. The flames around Luffy begin to dance more intensely, reflecting his excitement and readiness for battle. They swirl and twist, creating a spectacle of light and heat that illuminates the surrounding area. "Hugo. Let's see what you can do. But don't think I'll go easy just because you're my nakama." His flames burn so much that, at one moment, Luffy advances with an explosion. He charges towards the huge being from a diagonal angle as he ascends to hit its chest. Luffy, with intense focus, activates his more fruit model, amplify human devil fruit ability, increasing his strength 40-fold. He concentrates all that colossal energy into his right fist, which begins to glow with an intense and fierce flame. With a roar that mixes excitement and determination, he launches forward, aiming for the chest of Titan Hugo. Before the Titan can react or defend itself, Luffy's fist strikes it with devastating force. The impact is so powerful that the 100-meter colossus is sent flying backward like a rocket, its massive body cutting through the air and leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. The Titan's chest visibly caves in from the punch, a testament to the brutal power of the blow, and it flies into the sky. The boom of the impact resonates through the desert, a sound so loud and profound it seems to shake the very earth. Luffy's punch not only sends Hugo flying but also creates a shockwave that spreads through the area, lifting clouds of sand and causing crew members and rebels in the distance to cover their ears and try to protect themselves and prevent the ship from capsizing. "That's scary." Chopper screams in fright. "I want to go home." Vivi hugs crew as she yells. "Damn it, Luffy, you guys are causing trouble again." Kuina mutters dissatisfied. Meanwhile, in the ship's prison. "Hey, what the hell was all that?" Mr. 3 is scared. Powerful roars and tremors started outside the ship as if there was a huge monster outside. Now this force of impact makes most prisoners fall to the ground dazed. Honestly, I don't want to know. Makita is very scared of it. Something serious is happening out there. Jimbai comments. These pirates, what are they aiming for now? Momonga growls. Meanwhile, outside, Luffy, observing the result of his attack, murmurs to himself with a mix of satisfaction and concern. Oops, I think I overdid it a bit. He admits, seeing the Titan has become a small dot in the sky. On the other end of the vast Alabasta desert, a group of tens of thousands of rebels is moving rapidly, riding their horses with fierce determination. The dust raised by their hooves mixes with the dry air, creating a curtain that oscillates with the scorching heat of the sun. They are armed, each carrying the conviction that their mission is just unnecessary for the future of their country. The faces of the rebels are marked by resolution and anger. They have been pushed to the limit, believing that the only way to save Alabasta and ensure a better future is to overthrow the Nefertari family, which they see as responsible for their pains and suffering with the drought and destruction of the country. They talk amongst themselves, their voices laden with emotion and anticipation. Today, we will change the fate of Alabasta. The Nefertari family shall reign no more. They will pay for what they did to us, to the people. For the hunger, the pain, the lies. Our families, our children have suffered too much. It's time to bring justice. They advance, a wave of human fury sweeping through the desert toward the capital. In their minds, they are not just soldiers in a war, they are liberators, fighting to overthrow what they see as a corrupt and oppressive monarchy. They are willing to do whatever it takes, convinced that the fall of the Nefertari family is the only path to peace and prosperity. They couldn't have imagined a small shadow like a tiny dot amidst them starting to grow as seconds passed. A cloud in the sky? One asked alarmed, as they hadn't seen a cloud in the sky for years. That's no cloud, and it's growing, said another beside him. Wait, that's coming toward us. A third one shouted alarmed. The moment Hugo, transformed into a titan, falls like a stone near the rebels and hits the ground, a vast cloud of dust and sand rises, obscuring the rebels' vision and turning the sky into a dark and threatening shade. Boom! The fall is so sudden and powerful that, for a moment, it seems as if a giant meteor has just collided with the land of Alabasta. The rebels, now in a panic with their horses and a great confusion created in all their ranks as they tried to stop due to the sudden event, still recovering from the sudden interruption and tremor, look at the dust cloud with wide eyes and panting breaths. The sight of something so imposing falling from the sky shakes even the bravest among them. What is that? It looks like the sky fell on us. One shouts, pointing at the smoke cloud. A meteor? A government weapon? What could be so big? Another shouts, trying to protect his eyes from the dust. The horses, still nervous and agitated, continue to neigh and twist as the rebels try to calm them. The confusion is evident among them, with each one trying to understand the origin and meaning of what they have just witnessed. Stay calm. We don't know what it is, but we can't let ourselves be carried away by panic. Stay ready for anything, shouted the leader. As the dust slowly begins to settle, the outlines of an immense humanoid form start to emerge. Gradually, the true nature of the meteor is revealed. It's not a space rock, nor an unknown weapon, but the body of a giant, a being of mythical proportions. The rebels, now realizing they are facing a kind of power they never imagined, begin to reconsider their next steps. The presence of a titan appearing in the middle of the desert was something no one would believe if it were told. The manifestation of such colossal and terrifying power makes many question the true nature of the conflict in Alabasta, or whether they are in some kind of dream. Now, with the colossal form of Hugo, transformed into a titan, becoming visible, the rebels look up, alarmed and scared, as the 100-meter creature rises before them. My God! What is that? This can't be real. One of them said as his voice trembled. A monster. A giant monster emerged from the desert. Where did this come from? Said another, rubbing his eyes in disbelief. The horses, already nervous, are now in total panic, trying to flee from the threatening presence of the titan. The rebels struggle once again to maintain control of the animals while also trying to process the frightening apparition before them. Is this some government weapon? An ancient curse? A third one was shouting to be heard. Stay firm. We don't know what this is, but we must be ready for anything. The leader of the rebels was trying to keep calm. Stay firm? How can we fight against that? It's like an ancient god has awakened. Another desperate shout. We need to get away. Nobody can face a giant like that. A fifth one tried to flee. The titan, who was looking at nothing, suddenly looks at them, and 40,000 people could see the fearsome face maintaining a fixed smile with a terrifying expression. The giant seemed to have found its prey, and as the titan moves, each step resonating like the beating of a colossal heart, the rebels are taken by a primitive fear, a survival instinct that makes them want to flee from the immense and unknown danger. They look at each other, seeking answers and comfort, but all they find are the equally terrified faces of their comrades. While the rebels try to understand and deal with the presence of Titan Hugo, their gazes turn again to the sky upon noticing a new and impressive apparition. This time, it's a different meteor, a massive mass of purple flames tearing through the sky, heading toward the Earth with terrifying speed and force. Look! Another one is coming. But that one. It's on fire. Purple flames. I've never seen anything like it. What's happening here? They're gods. They're descending from the sky. I knew we shouldn't have started this coup against the monarchy. Look who we've enraged. The approaching meteor of fire. The purple flames illuminate the desert with a sinister light, creating long and dancing shadows that seem almost alive. Is this the end of times? Monsters and meteors of fire? Get ready. We don't know what this is, but we need to be ready to face it. With a deafening impact that echoes for miles, the meteor of purple flames hits the ground, not far from where Titan Hugo had fallen. The earth trembles under the power of the collision, and a wave of heat and light radiates from the point of impact. What power is this? Are we fighting gods now? Nobody can fight against this. We need to flee while we can. As the dust and smoke begin to dissipate at the site where the fire meteor fell, the rebels watch, waiting to see what will emerge from the flames. They are fearful but unable to look away, knowing that whatever appears, they'll run from there to survive. The 100-meter Titan stopped staring at the rebels and turned its attention to the impact Luffy created with his body. As the smoke and dust provoked by the impact of the purple flame meteor begin to dissipate, another colossal figure emerges from the epicenter. It's Ifrit, in Luffy's final form, a vision of power and fury with vibrant flames covering his 50-meter-tall body. The light from the purple flames reflects in his determined eyes as he looks at Titan Hugo. Luffy, as Ifrit, emits a powerful roar that resonates through the desert, a declaration of challenge and a call to battle. The sound is so intense and primal that even the bravest of the rebels feel a shiver of fear. Roar. Hugo, still in the form of Titan, remains silent, but his eyes, now more focused, meet Luffy's. There's a mutual recognition, a tacit understanding that the fight between them is inevitable. They're like ancient gods. The fight between fire and earth. Who could have imagined something like this? Luffy, in his Ifrit form, and Hugo, as the Titan, are about to collide in a battle that will be remembered for generations in this land. It's a confrontation that will define not only their fate but also the future of Alabasta and all who call this vast desert home. Chapter 151, Alabasta 20. As Luffy, in his Ifrit form, observes Titan Hugo in front of him, he can't help but notice the imposingness of the earth giant. Even in his Ifrit form, Luffy finds himself looking up, acknowledging the monumental scale of his opponent who was twice his size. Wow, Hugo, you're really tall like this, huh? But I can do better than this. Luffy would smile if it were possible at that moment. He wanted to test his combined fruits, and now with better control over Ifrit, he could test many of his powers. When he used his strength 40 times in his last punch, he himself was stunned with the power gain. Now with a determined smile and a gleam of challenge in his flaming eyes, Luffy decides to take the battle to the next level. He activates the more fruit model, amplify human devil fruit ability in an aspect he almost never used. More fruit model, amplify human devil fruit, mass, apply 4 times. He used it on himself. The only time he did that was to sleep with Yamato. Now he was testing it in a real battle. Intending to use 10% of the fruit's growth on living beings, the flames around Luffy begin to stir more fiercely, and his body starts to grow exponentially. In a few moments, he reaches an impressive height of 200 meters, quadrupling his previous size. Now, as a true giant of flames, Luffy faces Hugo as a dwarf looking down, his presence on the battlefield more formidable than ever. This is what I'm talking about. Let's see how you handle this, Hugo. As Luffy increases his own stature to surpass that of Titan Hugo, becoming a 200-meter flame giant, the rebels who were previously advancing determinedly towards the capital now find themselves paralyzed by shock and disbelief since the arrival of the first giant. The sight of 2 beings of titanic size and power ready to face each other is enough to make even the bravest heart tremble with fear and want to flee from there. This is impossible. They're like monsters from some ancient legend. We need to get out of here. We can't stay near this fight, it will be our death. Forget the coup, I want to live first. Let's go. The horses, sensing the fear and tension of their riders, start to neigh and agitate, desperate to flee the scene now. The sound of hooves beating against the desert ground becomes a frenzy as the rebels try to move away from the area while bumping into each other as they leave the site where the 2 colossi are about to face off. Fall back. Everyone, fall back now. We are nothing before this battle. Our weapons, our swords. None of that matters now. This is power that defies the very gods. What kind of things are these? Why did they appear here and now? As the rebels move away, some still cast fascinated and terrified glances back, unable to completely turn away from the scene. They whisper among themselves, questioning whether their fight for freedom has led them to a confrontation with forces beyond their understanding. While in the fight between the two giants, the flames of Ifrit began to dance fiercely on his skin. Time to end this, Hugo. I don't want to hurt you too much, but I need you to come out of this wild state. Luffy murmured, despite his mouth not moving, his voice was heard. Crack. The Titan seemed to have accepted the challenge as he positioned himself, breaking the sandy ground with his foot. Luffy's flames intensify as he advances, gliding through the sand as if skating with his flames. Ifrit moves with an impressive speed for his scale. Every tens of meters he passed, made the earth burn and tremble. Even in colossal form, Luffy's agility and dexterity are evident, a sign of how his control over the Ifrit form and his skills as a fighter were getting better and better. As Luffy approaches, Titan Hugo prepares to face him. Despite his reduced size compared to Luffy, Hugo's presence is still incredibly powerful, the energy of the earth emanating from him as a palpable force. His eyes, though clouded by uncontrolled fury, show a glimpse of recognition upon seeing Luffy approaching, and his instincts are ready to act. Luffy doesn't hesitate. He knows that the key to bringing Hugo back is to subdue him without causing severe injuries as he did with Nami. It's a delicate balance, facing a friend in such a wild state, but if anyone can do it, it's Luffy. As Luffy draws near, the two colossi raise their fists, symbols of their strength and element. One accumulates flames in his fist, while the other creates a layer of earth as both launch against each other in a powerful and decisive movement. The clash of their fists is cataclysmic. A shockwave radiates through the desert, causing the sand to rise in a storm, and the sound of the impact echoes like thunder, creating a wind that runs in all directions, lifting sand. Despite Hugo's formidable power, it is Luffy who prevails. His mass, amplified by the more fruit model, Amplify Human Devil Fruit, makes Ifrit grow not just in size, but his strength and even defense is equivalent to his size. His Devil Fruit is at an unprecedented level now. The fist with the excess size presses down on the smaller one, and with a roar of flames and force, Luffy pushes Hugo back. The Titan is sent backward with tremendous force, flying through the air and leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. His massive body crashes into the desert, causing the earth to tremble and split under the impact. Luffy, after launching Hugo away, stands firm, the flames around him oscillating with his energy. He knows the battle is not over yet and needs to keep pressing to bring his friend back to reason. Meanwhile, the rebels and other distant spectators watch the scene with a mix of fear and admiration. They have just witnessed a display of strength that defies all comprehension and logic in their lives. Crack the Titan begins to rise from the cloud of sand, looking at Luffy, but suddenly, balls of purple flames are sent towards him before he could act. Boom 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 boom. Luffy raised a hand, and flames began to be launched from it toward Ifrit with force. The flames exploded on the Titan's chest, making him fall backward awkwardly as more flames exploded on him. Luffy wastes no time after seeing Hugo explode backward, knowing that this won't deal with it alone. The Titan has more powerful strength and defense of the econs with his earth element. As the adversary tries to rise again, Luffy knows he needs to act quickly to bring his friend back to reason before more destruction is caused. Luffy advances, skating among his fire on his feet again. Luffy quickly is upon Hugo, but it's just the beginning. He quickly draws back his arm where he would initiate his beating of the Titan. Then he began to deliver his punches to the Titan still on the ground with some of his flames. With a series of precise and controlled blows, he explodes the ground with the Titan still down, each impact accompanied by the roar of the flames and the resounding sound of his force colliding with Hugo's body of rock and earth. The desert around them becomes a chaotic battlefield, marked by the struggle between these two powerful beings. Despite the fury and strength of the Titan, Luffy continues his offensive, blow after blow without letting the Titan even get up, each punch and explosion designed to weaken Hugo and force him to revert his transformation. Luffy's flames illuminate the scene, casting a sinister glow over the fight. The Titan tried everything to get out of there, trying to kick and punch Ifrit, but Luffy, now being twice his size, continued to withstand Hugo's uncontrolled powerful blows while the latter became increasingly injured by it. Finally, after an intense exchange of blows, Hugo begins to show signs of defeat. His punches start to weaken as he still remains on the ground. Luffy hit him so much that he began to create a colossal hole in the area, lifting tons of sand. Luffy realizes that he has finally given in and stops punching his opponent. The titanic form begins to falter and shimmer in brown, the energy sustaining it beginning to dissipate. Luffy, noticing this, concentrates his strength in one last powerful attack. With a final roar and a decisive blow, Luffy strikes Hugo, and the Titan's transformation begins to undo. The colossal figure shrinks, the earth energy forming it dissolving into a cloud of dust and debris. As the dust settles, Hugo is back in his human form, unconscious, but alive and, most importantly, safe. Luffy, now also returning to his normal form, approaches his fallen friend, a sigh of relief escaping his lips. Hugo lay there in the middle of the crater they had created with his body all battered while having blood all over him. Sorry, Hugo. But I must say it was fun. Luffy couldn't lie, it was so satisfying to have a fight between Megazords as he himself calls it. Since he fought with Nami, he hadn't had any other experience like this, so he got excited after a fight with Hugo, especially since he proved to be much stronger with his combined fruits. Around them, the desert is marked by the scars of the battle, a silent testament to the clash between the two Straw Hats. The fight is over, and now it's time to tend to the wounds and move on with their plans. Luffy looks at Hugo and thinks of the rebel army now distanced from the area after witnessing this fight. He walked up to his companion on the ground and placed him over his shoulder, multiplying his recovery by 30 times. He jumped with moonwalk out of the crater, which should be at least 50 meters deep, that was opened by pressing the Titan's body with the earth through punches. Looking around, he saw all the damage caused. There were many flames still burning over the area. Luffy couldn't help but think of some important things with this. This fruit. It's really amazing. The more fruit model, Amplify Human Devil Fruit, isn't just about increasing size. I can multiply my strength, my speed, my endurance. It gives me so many options in a fight. In my colossal form, unlike the last time I fought with Nami and had to keep her in mind aspects not to lose control of Ifrit. Now I used it freely and was able to quickly fight against the Titan and defeat him. Luffy thought. I can't imagine how strong I will make Ifrit with armament hockey when I learn to use it. It will be interesting. Luffy smiles. He lands outside the crater and throws Hugo on the ground, giving him a slap as his usual way of waking people up. Hugo woke up startled. Good afternoon, sleepyhead. Luffy smiles at him. What happened? Hugo asked dazedly, looking around at all the destruction and feeling his body all battered. He had broken his arm and many bones in his body. Yes, you lost control, but we'll talk about that later. First I want to deal with the rebels. Let's go. Luffy speaks as he jumps into the air towards where the rebels fled and were regrouping. He just needed to talk to them because he knew his form of intimidation worked better than he thought. Despite being quite dazed, Hugo looks at his captain jumping into the air and follows him using Moonwalk 2 since he doesn't have much choice. Chapter 152, Alabasta 21. After a titanic battle that shook the foundations of the Alabasta Desert, the conflict between the two giants finally calmed down.